Prairie View City Council meeting is now called to order at 6:01 on February 12th, 2018. Ms. Dickey, would you do roll call, please?
Councilman Brian Rowland.
Present.
Councilman Jonathan Irvin.
Here.
Councilman Kendrick Jones.
Here.
Councilman Wendy Williams.
Here.
Councilman Paulette Barnett. Here.
Thank you, ma'am. Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have a pastor in the house? Reverend, someone who goes to church regularly? Okay. Okay. I will bless us this evening, and we'll do then right after we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Lord, we ask you that you bless us this evening. Bless us in all of our undertakings on behalf of the city of Prairie View residents and all of those who are guests, investors in our city. We ask that you allow us to do your bidding on behalf of them. We ask that you allow us to go forward in all of those things that we are chartered to do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have some citizens comments, Mr.
Any citizen comments?
Well,
I've got-
the first thing I'd like to do is let me take the liberty of passing out to each of our council members their official picture. And I'll give it in the paper, may help with it. I know we had Ms. Mylan. Why don't you come up and we'll start with yours. And if you can just give us your name for the record and share what you shared with me so that it'll be in front of the council and we can look to act on that on you and your husband's behalf.
My name is Portia Mylin, and 2013, February 26th, me and my husband came before the board to get an approval to put a mobile on our land. So for 2 months now, I've been trying to obtain the records from here, but nothing is on paper, or they couldn't find them. So I'm just trying to go back through the process to get the approval or whatever the case may be.
And what was the address of the property where you were looking to put? And I think it was in the Ferguson Heights?
461 Cindy Lane. 461 Cindy Lane.
461 Cindy Lane.
Mhm.
And we were able to, because of your issue and to share with council, we were able to find the agenda and the planning and zoning agenda and the letter that former Mayor Jackson has sent out, that prior to you were going to have a hearing type thing for the zoning change. What we are struggling with is just going through a previous employee's computer to locate the minutes. So just wanted to share that for the benefit of council. But again, I appreciate you coming out because I know y'all did this some time ago, but I don't know what you did or didn't receive back then, but we're just going to pick up on it and try to find that information in the next couple of days for you. Okay? Anything else you wanted to share for the benefit of the council? Okay, because it had to do with a plan and zoning change, I just wanted to make sure you all were aware. And then with what I find, I'll get that to you, but I'll also get it to council, and you all will be aware, because we'll send the agendas as well from back then. I think it was 2012 or 13? 13? Okay, about 5 years ago. So we'll share that with council, and then when they get it, they would have met you, heard from you. And now, from what you recall, this situation was approved.
Approved by the board, yes.
Okay. And you all just didn't make that move with the manufactured home back then, but you're looking to
Right.
do so now?
Right.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you, ma'am. We will follow up and get back with you as well as with council. Now, was there any questions, because of the unusual nature of this, I'm treating it a little bit differently. Any questions by council in general? It was just a zoning request in Ferguson Heights for it to change it to manufactured homes. And so I'll get that to you, and then maybe they'll have questions. If so, we'll get back with you and what have you. Okay.
Thank you.
Ma'am. Was there another one, Ms. Dickey?
No, sir. No one
Okay.
else gave me one.
Great.
Was there anyone else that had comment card? No, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item number two, item number one, consider and take action for approval of the meeting minutes for the regular city council meeting on January 22nd, 2018. What's council's pleasure?
I'll move to accept the minutes from last meeting.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that the minutes from the previous meeting of January 22nd, 2018
I haven't
be
read.
approved, and we have none ready. Councilman Rowland.
Who typed these minutes?
Ms. Dickey actually did the physical typing, but we went through the video recording in doing so.
Okay, so we, whatever format we're gonna use, every month we get a different format. So can we make it consistent if we're gonna put, like the names, if we're gonna list them out, how are we gonna list it? The second thing on item number 8, each of the items you have just CC in a second. Item number 8, you have a full discussion and dialogue, and if the minutes are supposed to be consistent, I don't understand why you have a full dialogue and discussion. Is that something that city secretary put in here, or was someone directed to do this versus in the minutes we just had, who made the motion in the second?
Well, this was, item number 8 was a particularly unusual issue. Number one, it was brought to us from a resident. Number two, it involved two, and I'll say back at that time, 2 former city council members and a water utility issue, and there've been a lot of questions coming up on it. So I wanted the record to be clear, but also the minutes are to be reflective of what actually took place, including relevant discussion. I don't know if you recall, but you can feel free to go back to the video. I read this into the record, which is a little different than if we did a motion and voted it up or down. These things and documents were read into the record, which makes them a part of the minutes. With other items,
Mr. Mayor,
yes,
either way, whatever you wanted to put for number 8, all I'm asking is that if we're going to pull full discussion on every item, that it be the same and consistent, and you not direct the city secretary, who you shouldn't be directing, in reference to the minutes and the role and capacity. And so my question, again, do we have a format that we're gonna follow, and we stick to the format?
yeah, we're sticking to Robert's Rules of Order. If you read something into the record, it is to be in the minutes. If another council member reads something into the record, it is to be in the minutes. That is the format. That's a standard worldwide, international
Attorney
recognized
Kerwin?
format.
Yes, sir.
The question or that I'm asking, So of all the minutes that we've had, there is a first and second on every question that we've had, that we've done. And so I'm asking on, there's a specific section that I guess the mayor or who, I don't know if the mayor does the minutes or the city secretary, someone was directed to put the full discussion in the minutes. And so I'm asking to find out, is there some uniformity we need to follow? The mayor's talking about Robert's Rule of Order and all these things, which has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Robert's Rule of Order doesn't govern our meeting. How do we move forward on picking and choosing what we feel like needs to be recorded? So shouldn't there be a format that we follow, that just because the mayor wants this, that we do that and we don't put anything else on the minutes? So is there some clarity that we can get?
I'm going to give you a legal answer,
Okay.
not a political answer. The legal answer is the minutes can be as voluminous or as scant as the council so desires.
The council
You
so-
adopt the minutes. So that is,
And in picking up, council, if you look at the end of the city charter, city ordinances, it does indeed say that the council adopted, like almost every organization nationwide, the council adopted Robert's Rules of Order. So I beg to differ with Councilman Rowland that Robert's Rules of Order has nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with it. That's a parliamentary procedure that's very well recognized. With that said, I do have an unreadiness because there's some unclarity in the motion.
Call for question means you stop talking.
No, hold on. I'm the one that directs. So until you recognize, you stop talking. The motion, council, do you have this, the minutes in front of you?
yes.
I just want the motion that was passed to be clear as we go forward on this issue. Councilman Randall moved to take no action on the $2,500 balance, but then did say, other than the usual collection process, I just want to make sure Councilman Rowland's intent is followed. It's basically to use the usual collection process like we do for everyone else.
Councilman Rowland.
Okay, Councilman Randall. That be about right? Is that clear enough in there? I just don't want.
Whatever his intent is today, it's whatever was said that
Okay.
evening.
Okay, Councilman Jones.
Call for question.
Okay, all those in favor?
Last and ready. Can we just make sure my name is spelled right in the minute? Yeah, just,
R-A-N-D-L-E.
correct.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Item number 2, Chief Solomon to give oath to new police officers Stephen Bennett, Gerald Eagleton, Terrence Watson, and Michael Pope. Chief Solomon.
You can come up. Mr. Pope has not completed all of his things yet, so you won't swear him in yourself.
Okay, so you want
Yes, John, come on.
Officer Stephen Bennett, Gerald Eagleton, and Terrence Watson.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, you may, sir.
And did you? Anything, Chief?
Be quiet. Did you? We're going to do the statement of elected appointed first. Mr. White Sheet. Okay, gentlemen, if you raise your right hand, and the blank is your name. I
Terrence Watson.
do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
And affirm.
And affirm.
That I have not directly.
That I have not directly.
Or indirectly.
Or indirectly.
Paid, offered, promised, or paid. Contributed.
Paid, offered, promised to pay, contributed.
Contributed any money or anything of value.
Contributed anything, money, or value,
Public office or employment.
Public
public office or employment,
For giving or withholding.
giving or withholding
of a vote, election,
election,
at which I was elected,
which I was elected,
or as reward,
or as a reward,
to secure
to secure
any appointment,
any appointment,
confirmation,
confirmation,
whichever
whichever
case may be,
case may be.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Okay, now to the state oath. Raise your right hand. I
Stephen Barrow,
Terrence Watson,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the duty of office
the duty of office
of police officer for the city of Prairie View
of police officer for the city of Prairie View
in the state of Texas.
in the state of Texas.
I will, to the best of my ability,
That I will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect,
protect,
and defend the Constitution
and defend the Constitution
and the laws of the United States.
and the laws of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Okay, guys, last oath is oath of honor. Raise your right hand. On my honor, I will never
On my honor, I will never
betray my badge,
betray my badge,
my integrity,
my integrity,
my character,
my character,
or the public trust.
or the public trust.
I will always have the courage to uphold myself
I will always have the courage to uphold myself
and others accountable for our actions.
and others accountable for our actions.
I will always uphold the Constitution,
I will always uphold the Constitution,
my community,
my community,
and the agency I serve.
and the agency I serve.
Congratulations. Thank you.
God bless you guys.
Item number 3, presentation by Chad Noble, Siemens Smart Meters. Councilman Randall.
Okay, really quick before Mr. Nobles comes, I want to give just kind of a brief background of where this came from. Our relationship with Mr. Nobles started, I guess, about 3 years ago, when we recognized there was a real problem with our water system, and we started the process of interviewing, and myself, Ms. Durham, former Mayor Frank Jackson, Herb Thomas, the city council member at the time, and Frederick Alexander. We met for, I guess, about 4 consecutive Saturdays with any smart meter company who wanted to do business with Prairie View. And throughout that process, with meeting with Mr. Nobles and Simmons, we had felt like what they were going to present to us was the best option for the city of Prairie View. Unfortunately, a short time after that was when we got hit with the first bill from the university, in which the rate had changed. So it kind of put the project on hold until we figured out what was going to happen with that bill, and then administration changes, and it just kind of slipped through the cracks. And so this is us getting the wheels back rolling on a project that's long overdue, and I guess it was coincidental that we had an in-depth conversation about smart meters in the previous city council meeting, because the week prior to that, me and Mr. Nobles were supposed to sit down and meet, but the bad weather prohibited that, so we actually met face to face the week after the council meeting. And so today he's going to present basically to the council. This is just phase 1. He's going to present to the council, kind of tell us about the project, and then from there, if the city decides to move forward, it will come to an open town hall session where the citizens will have the opportunity to ask their questions, and hopefully the project will move from there. So, Mr. Noble,
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. My name is Chad Nobles. I work for Siemens. I have a counterpart here is DeVal Allen. She is a cohort of mine, and we're kind of partners in what we do, so that you guys have at least two faces to talk to at all times, in case one of us is not here. I personally live in Magnolia, right down the road here. DeVal lives in the Houston area, and so, as Mr. Randall said, we have been working with the city for a good 3 years, if not more, probably closer to 5 on different occasions, and been in front of council a couple different times. So you have a packet that I left in front of you before, and I want to kind of just quickly go through some of that to kind of refresh everybody's memory if we can. We work with cities throughout the state, and I've been doing this for about 15 years with cities here in Texas. Cities are challenged, like all of us, with financial constraints. You know, we are limited staff who has time and expertise to do certain projects. And one of the things that you talked about was smart meters or water meters themselves. But we also find that there's infrastructure within the city, whether that's buildings, whether that's piping. We know you guys are struggling right now with some of the infiltration coming into your water lines, and obviously that costs you money. And so those are the type of things that cities are faced with, from budget constraints as well as just aging infrastructure. In order to address those, if you'll flip to the next slide, we want to look at infrastructure, and a lot of our projects deal with water and wastewater. So a lot of things, you know, obviously that's a cost to you, but it's also a revenue for you as well, is what the water you sell to your citizens for. When we look at building infrastructure, we talk about lighting and air conditioning. Obviously, inefficient lighting uses more electricity, air conditioning equipment becomes older and uses, the more operating costs associated with that. So in a lot of our audits and evaluation, we look at the buildings themselves, or can look at the buildings themselves. From a technology standpoint, we have a lot of cities looking at AMI, which is automatic metering, or AMR, and we'll talk through those two differences here in just a little bit, to street lighting, to data management, and figuring out how can they capture the data and use that data to make fact-based decisions as they're working on tough decisions financially. So I want you to turn to page 4. One of the things that we know your city is struggling with is water meters. And we talk about a lot of the challenges. We've been speaking to Ms. Lindell. She's been very helpful in the process. And she talks about some of you get a lot of customer complaints about high water bills or about not having the data, not having the transparency that they're looking for. Is the data accurate? Is it reliable? It's hard for your current staff to be able to tell because they basically get one reading that they go out and take manually a month. There's no way to tell how a citizen was using the water to help them with leaks or anything of that nature. So they just don't have the data to make those decisions and help your residents out with. You obviously have a college-based town where you have a lot of people move in and move out. So there's a lot of data that comes in, comes out, changes, homes, change different names and stuff, and it's hard to keep track of that. Plus there's a lot of internal cost managing that process for you. Somebody comes in and says, hey, I got a high water bill, I didn't use that water. Right now you have to send somebody out to do a manual test or a manual read. You don't know whether or not, that is an accurate meter or not. And because as these water meters age, what typically happens is they don't read the amount of water that's going through them. So you could be, as a city, pumping 100 gallons of water to that resident, and they may only be paying for 80 gallons or 70. So you're losing revenue, both water and sewer sales, from these particular situations. So anyway, those are some of the challenges that you have. If you'll flip to slide 5, one of the things that cities want to do, your staff wants to do, is they want to address some of these challenges. Number one, they'd like to reduce the cost it takes them to read water meters. Right now, they send people around to manually read these water meters. Technology is available to have these water meters either read by putting a laptop in a truck and just driving the city in one day, or it could be that you put a fixed-base system to where all of those water meters read on a daily basis, and they're able to see the actual usage on a daily basis. So we'll talk some of those differences here in the next slide. But the idea is we want to eliminate that manual reading process. That in turn reduces billing errors, it reduces we're all humans, we all make mistakes, and so that takes that aspect out of that process. And then finally, they want to be able to give their citizens a quicker response. When somebody comes in and says, how did I use my water, what did I do? They want to know and be able to show them the daily data of how they can use and benefit and how they've been watching their water. You also want to provide greater accuracy. Remember, we talked about these meters becoming older and not reading correctly. The idea is you want to capture that free water that you've been giving potentially some of your residents. And we don't know what that free water is yet until those meters actually get randomly selected and we test them and see how the accuracy rating is. It could come back that if we do a random sample, that those meters are accurate and you're not losing that much revenue. But it could come back that your meters are reading 80% accurate. Now, from my understanding, you guys revenue about $1.3 million in water and sewer sales a year. So if you think about that just for a minute, if your meters were 90% accurate, then that means you're losing almost $130,000 a year between water and sewer revenue. $130,000 a year goes a long way for money that you're actually due and should be collecting because it's water you're pumping to your residents, but they're just not paying for. So those are some of the things that come out of these projects, and we'll talk a little bit more about this. And finally, we talked about providing better service to your citizens. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to come and tell Ms. Jones when she comes up and says, how did I use my water? Well, you can actually turn a computer screen around and maybe show her that she's got a leak from a toilet or a faucet and show that she's got continuous water that she didn't even know was going on during her house. Or maybe it would be nice to be able to say, hey, did you know that your sprinkler's always running at 4 o'clock in the morning? Some people don't know that, and they're gone and off to work and not be able to see that. So this data, by implementing and putting in smart meter, your staff would have the ability to help your citizens figure that out. Slide 6. Right now what we see is 2 different types of water meter or smart meters are out there. One, which we call automatic meter reading or AMR. Think of this as you take a laptop, you put it in your truck, and you have one of your staff members drive the city. You can drive the city in less than probably a day. There would be a radio and a meter in the ground, just like there's a water meter in the ground today, but we would actually add a radio to that. That radio would send a signal out, and when they're driving down the street, it would capture that read. So you pick up the read when you drive the city streets. So if you drive them 2 times a month, then you pick up 2 different reads a month. Otherwise, you get the meter read when you drive the city, but you no longer have to go open a box and figure out what's down in there and clean the water and the mud off. You actually get to read through this system. The most latest technology that people are moving to and have for years now is what we call AMI, or this is automated metering infrastructure. What we do is we take that laptop basically and we put a black box on like a water tower right outside City Hall here. Same radios in the ground, but now it sends that signal up to that black box, and on a daily basis your staff can see what the last 24 hours of water for your citizens are. So they could be able to tell, address leaks. You get a lot more benefits out of a fixed-based technology. The difference is you no longer have to drive a city, you get a lot more data in for it, and you're basically able to present that data back to your citizens on a quicker response time. If you'll go to slide 7, there's lots of benefits to the citizens. Number 1, if we do these projects, a lot of times we'll change out the meter itself. So now they're getting an accurate meter that's not over-registering, it's not under-registering. They're actually paying for what they use. It makes it fair for all citizens throughout the city. Because a lot of times what we find out is if you may have a brand new meter, but Mr. Rowland here has a meter that's 20 years old, well, he's getting free water and you're paying the extra costs because of rates maybe that were raised in the past. And so now what we're trying to do is make it equal and fair for everybody, that everybody pays for only the water that they use. We talked a little bit about access to data. Your citizens will now have the ability to be able to potentially log in, depending on which system you buy, and actually see their daily usage. So they can do their own conservation on an annual basis, or on a monthly basis or daily basis. But they get a clear picture of how they're using water and are there any leaks or anything associated with their account, their specific account. Or if they own multiple rent houses, they can see all of them together. And they can even set up alerts for themselves that if they're worried about a fixed income and they need to know that if they're getting close to hitting that water bill, then they can get an email or a text alert that says, hey, I'm getting close, maybe I should do something with my water. From an operational standpoint, it's a huge benefit to staff. Staff gets to, again, they eliminate the need, you get rid of dog bites, you get rid of, the ability, you can do turn on and turn offs, move in and move out. So if you have somebody that's a student and they're moving in and out, right now you would send a body out there to get that read, whereas with this system you simply push a button, it goes and reads the meter for you, you get the meter back, you can actually tell that student right then and there, here's what your cost is, you would pay it, you could then flag that account, and if anybody stole water or became using water at that house, you would automatically notify it, and it would put up an alarm. So your staff gets to really understand how water is being used in the city on a daily basis. And finally, you get to make fact-based decisions. A lot of times when you're council, you're asking for a lot of this data that staff just doesn't have. And you want to know where to replace water lines or how's your water going and how's it being used. Well, right now, they're having a hard time doing it because their data's, they only get it once a month and it's 30 days old. Well, if you had data on a daily basis, you could see trends, you could see patterns associated with this. If you look at slide 8, there are multiple ways that your citizens have the ability, depending on the manufacturer of water meters that you choose, of how they would see data. This is a dashboard that they could actually log into an email account or a website. They would be able to see how they're using data. So as you can see from this screen, you can see what their daily usage is. It would be able to tell them if they had a leak. You can maybe get a projection of what your bill would be for this month, what it was last month, how it maybe compares to some of your group of neighbors. They wouldn't obviously know which neighbors, but it could be a general area of the deal. So there's lots of dashboards or what we would consider profiles that you would be able to see because it takes the data, their individual data, and shows them what it all looks like. The big question that we always get asked by citizens, you'll flip to slide 9, is how do you pay for this? How do we fund these projects? What does that look like? On slide 10, this is one of the things that's available to you. So back in the early 80s, the state passed a law, it's called Local Government Code 302. And it basically states that these projects can be funded using the lost and unaccounted revenue, capture of that revenue, plus operational savings or energy savings. So let's say that we come in and we change the lights in City Hall and we save $10,000 a year off that utility bill by putting the new lights in. We would be able to capture that savings from what you're having to pay to the utility company and use it to pay for the project. So those savings have to also be guaranteed by somebody like us. So when we come in, and if we come in and tell you we're going to save you $10,000 a year on your electric bill, and I don't, then I have to write you a check for the difference. That's what this legislation did to protect you as a city, and it takes the risk off of your back and puts it onto a company like ourselves. So let's move to slide 11. Talk a little bit more about the financing here. So if you think about it, you have a utility budget and you have an operation and maintenance cost budget. The idea, again, go back to the lighting part. If we reduce that utility cost, so instead of paying that $10,000 to the electric company, you would use that $10,000 to pay for the work associated with this project. From an operational standpoint, if you've got an air conditioning system that's constantly failing and you're having to spend money on maintaining it, if we put in a brand new air conditioning system, now you maybe have a 10-year warranty on that system, so you're not buying material or having to fix that on the unit. Those maintenance costs can also be taken out of that maintenance budget and put into a bucket to use to pay for these funds. So hopefully that makes sense as you're getting operational savings and utility savings. That's on the energy and utility side that happens a lot of times with the buildings. If you'll go to slide 12, this is where we talk about water meters and how do they typically pay for themselves. Well, I talk about a water meter as it ages, as it has water run through it, accumulates a whole bunch of water, it tends to slow down. So what happens is these mechanical devices wear out. What that means is you may be, again, pumping 100 gallons to that customer, but you're only recording 80. So you're losing revenue associated with what went to that city. So you will pick up water sales by replacing that meter. And as you know, your water rates are also tied to your sewer rates, or your sewer rates, excuse me. Your sewer rates are tied to your water rates. So if a person uses 100 gallons of water, they get charged a certain amount for sewer. So again, you pick up sewer revenue along with that water revenue that you were typically not collecting, even though you were due that money. From an operational standpoint, as we noted, you have a cost associated with reading approximately 1,500 meters a month. So as you go around and read these meters from a labor standpoint, if they're all being read by technology, you don't have fuel costs associated with driving around the city, you don't have the labor cost associated with that. Those individuals can use their time to go do other repairs in the city, or you can save that money directly to the bottom line. So again, these are dollars that you as the city are typically due, and the losses accounted for, you just may not be collecting them. So how do we figure this out? What is a process that we must go to? Slide 13 talks about the process. It starts typically, or can be, through a request for qualifications. You are also a member of Choice Partners, which is a cooperative purchasing, co-op basically for purchasing type items such as this. We were actually chosen through that cooperative to be, we went through a competitive process with them. They had about 6 or 7 companies actually interview, and we were awarded through that for the last couple of years. So cities have been utilizing this process. It basically allows them to kind of bypass the procurement process or use this co-op to enter into a contract directly with us. What we would typically do is start with a letter of intent. We would ask you to sign a letter of intent, which I think I'd given a draft to the city before in the past. That would allow us to do what is this detailed analysis. When it comes to water meters, what we're going to do is we're going to go randomly, we're going to go buy 70 water meters, we're going to go randomly put 70 water meters out throughout town. We'll take the old ones out, we'll send them off to a third-party company. They're going to give us the accuracy associated with that water meter. So if they come back and they're 85% accurate, then we can apply that to your existing usage, go through your database and figure out how much revenue you're actually losing from these inaccurate meters. And we can project to you what that revenue projection would be. We will also then get firm fixed pricing on water meters. We can evaluate multiple technologies for you. Siemens doesn't make any water meters. We actually work as a consultant, an engineer, an installation company all for you. We put them all in, and so we can actually help you evaluate on your behalf what the best metering technology is for you. We would then come back to you with a shopping list of things to do. Maybe it's changing out the lighting, maybe it's the water meters. We would have a firm fixed price, we would have savings projections for you, and we would have financing options available to you. You then as council get to decide. You could either move forward with implementing a portion or all of that, part of that project with us, or you can simply pay us for the letter of intent and we would walk away. So we call that letter of intent a walk-away fee. I would say in my 15 years, I think I've had 2 cities walk away and pay the letter of intent. Most cities will implement some portion of the project with us and actually improve the infrastructure that you have. Once the implementation is done, and you sign a contract to move forward, that cost of that letter of intent gets torn up. It actually gets rolled in the construction price. So ideally, we hope you never pay for that letter of intent. We hope you sign and do an actual implementation contract with us. And then we would go ahead and, let's say, put in all the water meters. We would then come back and enter what we call the guarantee phase. In the guarantee phase, when it comes to water meters, every year we're going to go randomly pull some meters because we're guaranteeing the accuracy of those meters over the term, which basically then means you get the revenue that you're projecting. If we don't hit that accuracy guarantee, then I have to write you a check for that revenue as well as replace your water meters. So I have had to do that in one city. I actually had to replace about 6,000 water meters on my own nickel. We found out that those meters didn't, in year 3, they actually had some failures. What we traced it back to was a manufacturer's defect. But we actually stood behind our guarantee and actually went and took care of it. If you move to slide 14, I'll just give you a couple of different cities that we worked with. The closest city here is Hempstead. A couple of years ago, we actually retrofitted all the city of Hempstead's water meters. They actually have water, electric, and gas. So we put in an automatic meter reading system for them. We actually executed the entire project, and they've actually got a fixed base automatic meter reading system there in city of Hempstead. City of Rosenberg, Texas, we did that project, I think back in 2007 or 2009, actually, I believe it was 9. We went through and actually did a full water meter replacement. We actually did major upgrades to their wastewater treatment plant. We reduced their utility bill at the wastewater treatment plant by over 50%. It was significant off their utility bill. We did lighting upgrades throughout their city buildings. We replaced some air conditioning equipment, and we did some water conservation as well. City of Conroe, that project was another project very similar to Rosenberg. It included air conditioning, lighting upgrades, traffic signal improvements. That city decided to go with a drive-by system. It was back in 2007. The fixed base cost at the time was a little high, and it was fairly new. Now the technologies are very close together, and so they're talking to us again about trying to do to the fixed base system. That system's over 10 years old. They'd like to upgrade, but everything's working fine right now. And that project actually had significant savings. It was almost over $750,000 a year just in savings alone and increased revenue from lost water meters. The last slide I have is page 15. It just shows some additional projects that we've done, and as you can see, the list is fairly long. We've done local cities from Pearland to Bay City to Lamarck, Taylor, Texas. We mentioned Hempstead, El Campo, Willis, Hewitt, Rosenberg, Big Spring, Port Arthur, Bridgeport. I mean, these are all cities that we've done projects like this in. All of our projects are successful. All of our customers are happy, and we would love to make you the next best reference. So with that, I'll take any questions that you have. Again, from a next step standpoint, the next step for us would be to execute the letter of intent through the Choice Partners Cooperative if you decide to move forward. And then we would start the audit process and be able to get firm fixed pricing and tell you what your water meters are doing, and maybe look at buildings if you want us to go that route as well. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have, or if you didn't understand.
Council?
I heard you talk about how basically implementing this, you would be able to see what's the rate at which citizens are being charged. I know right now that's a big issue. We don't know the rate at which we're being charged by the university.
Okay.
As well as the next question is, let's say that we did plan to move forward, and then council, we decided to go in the direction of getting our own water treatment plant, discontinue it from the university. Then how would that affect you guys?
So you're talking about two different things, so I want to kind of differentiate here a second. When it comes to water meters, the water meters you're collecting from your residents, so you're pumping treated water, clean drinking water to the residents. Those water meters that are in the ground of your, call it your cash register, you know, that you're actually able to figure out how much water your citizens are using, and that's what you bill off of. So when you implement a smart meter program or a water meter system, what we're talking about is the citizens having to pay for the water that they actually get pumped. When you're dealing with wastewater and you're talking about what you're sending to the university to treat that water, that is water that comes from flushing a toilet or from washing clothes or whatever, and it runs into a gravity-fed, typically collection system that then gets pushed to the university. I don't know your setup right now, but if you're not metering that water, you know, where it actually comes into play, and I would assume the university definitely has a meter on there, and they're probably billing you a sum every month for what that water is. You can potentially put additional meters on that and actually feed it back into an AMI system and know whether or not their meter is reading exactly like your meter, so you can compare the two. One of the things that I know I talked to Mr. Councilman Randall about was you have a lot of aging infrastructure, and you have a lot of potentially infiltration into the sanitary sewer system. There are things that you can do to that system in order to improve it. It could be, you know, some repiping, it could be some coating of lines. There's different technologies that's available out there. So we may have the ability to kind of look at that as a potential opportunity. But it wouldn't affect anything we do with the water meters. That would be a completely separate. Now, going to your own wastewater treatment plant, we would obviously work with an engineering firm, maybe somebody of your choice, to help them run some numbers to potentially build a wastewater treatment plant. Maybe it could be a package plan, or it could be something. So we could definitely help you through that process and evaluate and tell you what we've seen at other cities and what's worked and not. Because we're doing a project right now for the city of Bel Air. We actually are replacing their water meters, but we're also doing a major overhaul to their wastewater treatment plant. We've done wastewater treatment plants in Bay City, El Campo, Rosenberg, Bel Air, all of these where we've actually done some wastewater treatment plants. So we do have that expertise as well to kind of help guide you through some of that process.
So would the citizens have to have new pipes installed in order for these meters to work?
No, actually what we do, the process is pretty simple. You have a pipe in the ground, and you may or may not have, there's usually what they call a curb stop. It's a valve that's usually before and after your meter. If it's not there, if it's a straight pipe, then we would actually cut the pipe. We would actually have to put a curb stop in, and actually we would just be replacing the water meter. So it's not a new pipe. One of the things that we do as part of it, because we know how to do these, the installation can be difficult, but because we've done so many of these, one of the things that we do is we build into the cost. We don't like change orders. We want you to have a firm fixed price at the end of the day. And so as part of this survey and testing that we've done as part of this audit, we're going to kind of get a feel of how many of those that are straight pipe, how many times we break pipe when we go to, because you got a valve that may have been 20, 30 years old, but if I go to turn it, it may break. So I want to make sure that I cover that cost and not have to hit you with a change order associated with that. So when we do these, we build all of that cost into you and come back at the end of the day with that firm fixed price for what that is. So we're typically responsible for about a 3-foot, it's 1.5 feet on each side of the water meter, because that's about, if we break something, we're going to typically see it right then and there. But you don't have to replace any water lines or anything like that. We just replace the meter itself. And we put a radio on top of it. Sometimes we'll actually replace boxes. If you've got a meter box that's crushed or broken, a lot of cities want us to fix that box while we're out there. Does that make sense? I know there were some other questions. So.
Hello, how you doing?
Doing well.
2 things. So this came up maybe even 5 years ago. This similar project about replacing. It's gonna estimated about 1.5 million, right under 1.5 million dollars, to do that for the households here in our city. We were talking about whether we're gonna have to do a bond or a general obligation bond. Can you speak to what does this local government 3.02, what's the difference in the financing? Because to do the GO is something similar, it's just done differently.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that? And 2, if you could speak to that first, and I have another question.
Sure. So I don't think with 1,500 water meters it's 1.5 million. I think you're going to be less than that. I think you're probably going to be under $1 million pretty easily. So usually we see projects of this range anywhere from $400 to $600 a meter after all in cost. That includes your software, your servers, your training, your broken pipes, your boxes, and all that. So if you got 1,500 water meters and you say $500 a meter, you're what, 750? 750,000, so it's half of that number. But you should be, and again, we won't know until we actually go physically price it up, see exactly what you want, and depending on the technology you pick, you're going to be somewhere around there. Regarding the funding, the local government code 302, and we don't make any money off of financing, so what we would want to do is work with your financial folks, figure out the best funding mechanism to you. You have the ability to do up to a 20-year term, okay? So you can do a GO, general obligation bond, that would require voter approval, citizens approval. Most cities do one of 2 things. They either do a tax-exempt municipal lease, which the benefit there is it is a much less paperwork. It doesn't affect your bond rating or your bond capacity. You can go out to 20 years. The warranties on a lot of these meters can be a 20-year warranty. You can get a 10-year full, 10-year prorated warranty. So it's, we have cities finance these things 20 years. Hempstead actually went 20 years. So you can do a tax-exempt municipal lease that doesn't have it has a non-appropriations clause in it, which basically allows you not to affect your bond rating or bond capacity. You can also do, which a lot of cities do, is a CO, a certificate of obligation. A CO does not require citizen approval as well. It's basically, you have the authority as council to issue that CO. That is a little bit, you get a little bit lower interest rate sometimes, but I will tell you with a project of your size, the issuance cost a lot of times in COs, you'd have to just look at that. So we will run different options for you. When you choose us as your partner, all of that funnels through us. So we would work closely with your financial advisor. We could put out an RFP for financing. We have national banks and local banks that come to us all the time, and they follow us around to finance these projects. So we would help you find any grants, any money that's available for that particular funding mechanism, and we would present a CO potential opportunity for you or a tax-exempt lease, but you would make the ultimate decision at that based on what term you would want to do. And I will tell you right now, rates are fluctuating quite a bit. If you're following the market, you know that they're kind of all over the board right now.
Okay. Could you explain the timetable? Say we sign the letter of intent tomorrow. How long would it take for the overall project to be up and running?
So for us, if you sign the letter of intent, it's probably going to take us, the fastest I've ever actually, from letter of intent to actually presenting and standing you here again to the next time and saying, here's what your final price and everything is about 99 days. That's my fastest so far. So it took me 99 days, a little less than 3 months, or a little over 3 months to actually present back to a council with a firm project. I would assume yours is going to be very similar, somewhere around there. anywhere from 90 to 120, 140, 30 days to actually bring back to. And it really depends on how fast staff wants to help choose meters, make decisions. As we go through that process, we're working closely with them on picking meter technologies and figuring out the actual process. So you would, at least 3 months to be able to develop that, probably looking at 3 to 4. Once that takes place, you then have a decision to make. So you could then sign a contract. If you sign the contract, you would have funding within probably 45 to 60 days. If you did like a tax exempt lease or a CO, depending on which way you go. But you can expect a couple month process for the, a month and a half to 2 month process. And we would build all this to know when it is. From an implementation standpoint, once we get the funding, once the contract's been signed, we typically average about 80 to 100 meters a day. So we're going to knock out the actual construction of this project. If you take 1,500, if you just divided it by 100 meters, not a lot of time, to actually do this process. But we have an initial, you usually have about a 4 to 8 week lead time for the water meters. We then want to set up the infrastructure. If you go to fixed base, which is usually about 4 weeks to get all that data, because we work with your billing company as well as the meter manufacturer to make sure all that billing, we take care of all of that so that she doesn't have to actually enter the data back and forth. We have a full-time IT person that enters all that data and records. We take pictures, GPS coordinates, so that everybody knows what the old reads and last reads are. So this whole process is probably at least a 6-month process. From start to finish, meaning you'd actually have a system, from the time we start to the time we actually get it up and running, you're probably 6 to 9 months, and you're going to be able to have a system that's up and running.
Okay, and I'm sorry. Could you speak to the technology side of it? As far as our staff being able to operate the technology, what does that process look like as far as the training? And I remember in our conversation you mentioned there was an app, or there's a possibility of an app where citizens can monitor their water bill and track their water bill via the app.
Sure. So we obviously, when we implement a project like this, we want staff to have what we would call on-the-job training as well as formalized training. So when we go to actually start the implementation process, we bring staff in, we would train them on the software, get them, once the software's been loaded and up and running, they would get training on all that. Then we would want your field staff to also know how to troubleshoot, how to install new for themselves going forward. So we would allow them to work with us if they wanted to, work alongside to be able to see. A lot of times we break up the in-house or the inside training into multiple sections because you want to see the training and then you absorb it, and you want to come back up, a couple weeks later and do the training again. So all through the process, we provide staff with training. From a standpoint of the app and the citizens, each manufacturer of the water meters is different. We typically look at a couple different ones based on the needs that you want to do. Some meters, most of them have a phone app where you can actually either get it on an app on the phone, or you could actually go through a website to be able to see it, but we could provide a workshop to citizens, set up a town hall meeting for folks. We could make sure your staff was trained so that if a citizen came in and wanted to be able to see that and help them out. From an ongoing basis, a lot of cities, if they're going to the fixed-based process, they're doing what they call a hosted solution. Most cities, I know you guys don't have a full-time IT person that sits around and monitors data and stuff. So what they do is these meter manufacturers actually host the data. They use Amazon or some server, web-based server, where the data is actually hosted in there. They keep your software up to date. They make sure it's always communicating, any issues. They're handling that process, and you basically call it software as a service type fee that you would be, kind of like Apple Music or anything like that, that you're familiar with that process. But you can also do that. So you can either own the server and you maintain it, or either the server that stores all the data. Most cities are going to a hosted solution.
Mr. Mayor, I know that we just got done fixing, paying for some meters. On average, how much do you think that like each meter costs?
We didn't pay for meters, we paid to repair and maintain lift stations.
Okay.
The actual lift stations, not the meters.
So,
But there have been occasions when we got 50,
Yeah.
just to remember the exact price of a new meter.
It's like for 3, 4, it's running pretty close to 300.
Per meter?
It really probably depends on whether you're replacing just the brass portion or if you're replacing a radio or the technology. So most water meters, the brass itself, you just bought plain brass, you may be running 50 or 60 something bucks a meter just for the brass part. The radio is where the cost is. So the cost of that, when you add that on, you've got the cost of it could be anywhere, depending on the meter manufacturer, $150 to $250 for the radio and the register. Then you've got the installation, you got boxes, you got lids, the curb stop, the install, the data handling, all of that, and that's how you get to that general average. You also have the infrastructure, so if we've got to go climb a tower, put a pole, that software, all of that is built into that number that I gave you. But that would all come back, we'd break that out to you, so, yes ma'am.
I want to ask, out of the 3 cities that you mentioned here, have y'all ever done a survey of your services with the different communities that you've done this work in?
Survey the cities? You mean the citizens?
The residents. Survey the residents that receive y'all services.
So we have not. I mean, the city obviously hears feedback. I can tell you some feedback we've got from our projects. Former mayor in Conroe said it was one of the best projects he had ever done because he actually, if you think about it, if you're able to do this project without raising water rates or raising taxes, how many projects do you ever get to do that with, right? And if you think about it as a council, you're making a decision that really you're using your existing budget dollars, but that you have to actually help pay for something. That's kind of unheard of. Citizens love these projects in the sense that they get the data. They now get the transparency that they're asking for. I mean, just think about how many times you really want to know how you're using your water if there was a leak. And so if you have the ability to go yourself and look at that data or call your utility billing staff and say, show me, where's this water going? Now, obviously, if you had a citizen that had a meter that was only reading 50% accurate, now all of a sudden I put one that reads in 100% accurate, they're going to get a higher water bill. But they're basically been getting free water for years, possibly. So you kind of have, citizens, some citizens will complain because they may have an inaccurate water bill. But now they're paying for the water that they actually use, so they have the ability to make that decision.
Oh yeah, I understand that part, but I also don't want our citizens who are mostly retired elderly people to pay for a mistake that the city should have taken care of a long time ago too.
That's right. Yep. But that's part of the whole process is to make it fair and equitable to everybody involved.
Right. My question is in reference to, based upon our infiltration and our current situation with our wastewater treatment facility with our current rate, is this a project that should come at the beginning or at the end once we get that rectified? And number 2, I looked at the savings you had in those other cities. If we did go with the letter of intent, which is just to get the information, what rate are you using to be able to, in reference to if we decide not to move forward, what is the billable rate, or what are you using to if we don't move forward, after you give us a summary? And the summary is like the good technology's there, it gives us everything we need, but we just have too much infiltration and things that you don't necessarily do with the piping and all the other things. Is there a way for us to get out of, again, having moved forward in this contract that, again, will give everybody the opportunity for them to be able to read their meter, but for the cost savings that the city would want to do it, would it be a smart choice at that particular point in time? Because at the same time we talk about this, we're talking about what we're going to do with the wastewater treatment facility. They should both either be done simultaneously. But again, the other question I have for JJ, how much money do we have? You're saying using cost savings to be able to front the cost for this. And so you're saying cost savings that's going to come from non-collected water revenue, or
could be increased billables.
Billables. And so are your numbers connecting to the numbers that JJ have in reference to what we may be paying or collecting at this particular point in time?
So you have quite a few things going on in that question. So I'm going to try to break those down here a little bit. We still need to separate wastewater from water. Okay, they're completely entirely two different systems.
Right.
Okay.
But we need both.
You do,
right.
and that is every city needs both. Okay. So let's start with the wastewater. Okay, which is the stuff you're dealing with Prairie View. that is a cost that you have, and I can't prioritize for you, okay? But you either have a cost associated with paying for the water that you're going. Now, you can address, which we can potentially help you with, the extra water that's going into that system, maybe through leaks or broken the infiltration. We can potentially address that somehow and look at what that would be. And that could potentially lower what you're having to pay for the volume of water that's going into the wastewater treatment plant. To evaluate a brand new wastewater treatment plant, well, that's a whole nother cost scenario. But that has nothing to do with the water meters and the AMI. I'm a huge fan of the water meters, and because you're losing revenue. You could be, I don't know yet. The only way I can tell whether or not you're losing revenue is to do a random sample of the audit. And so this audit, and I've given a walkaway fee that you mentioned there. So that walkaway fee, if you pay me for that walkaway fee and that's all you do, I'm going to probably lose double that amount that I've quoted you. So what I'm trying to do is get you to say, hey, I'm truly interested in doing it. Because if I offered it free, everybody would take me up on it. You know, the thing is I will spend $50,000, $60,000 doing this audit. Every time I do one of these, whether it's this big or 20,000 meters, because I'm going to pull about 71. So I'm going to spend that money getting firm pricing, doing the propagation study, looking at this field survey of all this stuff. I'm going to spend that amount of money. What I hope to do is become a long-term partner with you. So I've obviously discounted that rate, asked you to sign a letter of intent, and that's your walkaway fee. If we bring back a project and we show you all the different funding mechanisms, what it's going to take to pay for this, and you walk away, I'm trying to recoup some of my cost. You know, that's what I'm trying to do with that letter of intent. Hopefully, again, that you don't. We basically tear that up and we move forward with the project. But they're completely separate. I'm a big fan, as I mentioned, of doing the water meters. I think you need to be able to provide your citizens with the data and the transparency that they're looking for. And I think that should be priority, you know, in my opinion, should be priority number one. I also think you should capture this money or potentially the lost unaccounted revenue that you're due, you know, as a city. But that's a hard decision to make. I mean, it's an infrastructure that, you know, unfortunately the city has put it off, and you got meters out there that are probably 25, 30 years old, and they're probably not capturing that data.
Well, I don't have a question, but more so just a statement rather. Obviously, the issue with the wastewater treatment, I mean, it's an issue that we've all been wrestling with. And at the same time, this is why this project has been pushed back for this long already, because it's like, how do you present one thing when we're still fighting another? But you know, after 2 years with no rectification of that situation, it's like, at what point do we provide the citizens with better service? Because granted, this project's going to provide new revenue, but more than anything, I don't know how many people a day the mayor of Ms. Durham see when they come in their water bill and they say, hey, I've been paying $20 for the last 20 years and now my bill is $50, and we don't have an explanation for that. And it's an asset to the citizens for us to be able to say, hey, this is where your water bill, this is why your water bill is high, because right now we don't have an answer. And so at some point, in the last 4.5 years since I've been sitting up here, we've been working to reaffirm every department in the city. And Public Works is the last one. We've got municipal court in order, we've got the police department in order. And so, you have to imagine the strain for one that it puts on Ms. Durham and the mayor, and for two, for a citizen to come with a question and we not be able to give them a for sure answer. This eliminates, the middleman. This eliminates us having to go out and do rereads because, the numbers don't lie. And so at some point, the city has to, because the wastewater treatment issue isn't going to be there. So at the same time, the city has to start moving forward, and either we tackle them at the same time, but either way, we have to show the citizens that we hear their concerns, because we had citizens come in and give citizens comments at the last meeting questioning the accuracy of our process. And everybody knows that our process has flaws. So at what point do we start trying to eliminate the flows?
Chad, good to see you again.
Yes, sir, you
And
too.
you're right, I believe it's closer to 5 years.
It's been a while.
Out here. You mentioned something about lighting upgrades. Could you briefly say what role you all play with lighting upgrades with a couple of your
Sure.
city examples?
So,
What type of lighting are you speaking of specifically?
So a lot of times, cities want us to help address their building needs. And so in here, it could be the lighting that we're looking at right here. We would audit that. We would actually come in and count every light fixture and make a recommendation to replace them possibly with LEDs or better fluorescents, giving you maybe a 10-year, 5-year plus warranty on those. And what we do is we evaluate. I mean, you don't have a lot of buildings, but depending on what the light conditions are, it may or may not make sense. But
Gotcha. So
we would price up, we would audit, we would count every light fixture, we would come back and say, okay, here's how long they run, here's what the cost of a lighting retrofit would be, to where you'd get maybe new LED lighting, and it may say that is a $50,000 cost and it pays for itself in 5 years or 10 years or whatever. So we would present that to you. Same thing with air conditioning equipment.
Right, so what you're saying is a building lighting audit?
Yep, it would be
Okay.
building lighting, it would be, you don't own your street lights.
No.
Yeah, so we wouldn't, in Texas, most cities don't own their street lights unless they're a municipal-owned utility.
Okay.
So we typically don't mess with those because you don't control those.
Right, so
If you have decorative street lighting or park lighting,
We don't.
Then
Let's
we
go
would
to
have
the
that.
next, let's go to
Okay.
the next question. A lot of times we have to change meters on page 7. Exactly what are you referencing when you say you have to change meters? And at your cost, city's cost, how does that work?
page 7.
Yeah, you were on page 7, and you said a lot of times we have to change the meters.
You made from an operational standpoint?
I don't know.
So
Somewhere else.
probably what I was referring to, because on 7, we're talking about the benefits of citizens and operational benefits. What this AMI or AMR system has the ability to do, and Mr. Randall had hinted to some of this, you don't have to do rereads, and I may have misspoken, but some of the things, the benefits of an AMI system give you is, you get a customer comes in and complains about a bill. Labor-wise, operationally, usually what the first step a city takes is they send somebody out to verify the data was recorded correctly. So they call that a reread. That reread process would be eliminated. You would basically push a button from the utility billing staff. They would be able to see what that read was and be able to show a customer what their data was. So you no longer have the cost of sending the labor out, that truck roll, all that stuff. You would save that. From let's take another situation that this gives a benefit. You got a student. They are for the fall semester. They decide to move out. Well, when they come in and want to pay their final water bill, you send a body out to go read that meter again, okay? In this case, you would actually push a button, it would read the meter, you would be able to bill that, give them the bill right then and there, you'd have that less truck roll. And then additionally, you could flag that account. So you could set up a warning or an alert for your staff so that if somebody used water at that house, you'd be able to see it. Right now, if somebody doesn't use water, most of the time they put it as inactive or vacant, and then they don't go read that meter next month. Well, somebody could be using that, and you may not know 2 or 3 months down the road. So we capture a lot of lost revenue again, or theft or vandalism that comes with some of this stuff.
Okay.
Regarding changing the meters themselves,
Yeah.
we're obviously going to replace, if we do a meter project, most of the time we replace all the meters in town with brand new. Those then now get a warranty. Most of them have a 10 to 20-year warranty. So you're not going to be paying for, buying new meters for that time.
Good, okay, and you're right, we do send bodies out, and as Councilman Randall alluded to, it's every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's multiple times a day when we have folks with these concerns. Again, like many cities, we've just got some old infrastructure.
You do.
How often is your equipment calibrated? Because like right now, you're saying some of our meters may be inaccurate, and no doubt they are, because some have been out there for quite a while. But what's the calibration time on yours?
So most of these meters aren't, quote, calibrated. What we do is on an annual basis, we go out and pull a random sample again to test to see what the accuracy is.
Okay.
A lot of the new meters that are being manufactured don't have any moving parts.
Okay, so no need for...
So there is no need for calibration.
Gotcha.
So what we do is we want to verify that all the electronics are working and everything. So Once a year, usually as part of our program, we put into, and again, you can decide not to do this or do this, but we usually have, cities usually pay us to go out and actually do that random sample. And it basically, you know, we may test like 11 meters around, and that gives us about an 80% confidence factor of what the accuracy level is. If it comes back and we guaranteed you 98.5% accurate, and it came back at 98, then we would go test some more meters and see. And maybe we had one bad meter or something, and we then get to, you know, maybe we test 70 or 80 meters and we're now back at 99%. Okay, we're fine. We move to the next year.
So these
You
are
know?
annual costs even during the 10 to 20-year warranty?
Yeah, these will be basically costs, because we're buying brand new water meters. Again,
Okay.
that is allowing you to determine to make sure this is all. You're getting new meters put in the ground, you're getting a verification of what's taking place. Most cities will keep those 3-4 years, and then they cancel that. Because the idea is that the citizens, you know, that's working, they're doing. I have had cities keep it 12-15 years.
Gotcha.
You know, it just depends. And that cost is a small ongoing cost, but a part of the benefit is you get a actual brand new water meters, you get to see and make sure that the system's working.
Now, on the physical installation, is that done by Siemens and actual employees or independent contractors?
So we typically bid that work out. We have national partners that we use, but we also have, we have known to put it out to multiple bidders, you know, in the past. But every year, Siemens does a national bid for installation companies, and we compete it nationally. These guys are specialties, you know, and so a lot of times we compete, and we're looking, you know, we're not changing out 1,500 meters, we're changing out, you know, lots of meters across the U.S., so these guys follow us around.
What's the projected walkaway, what's the projected walkaway for guesstimation?
For you guys, I think we had quoted you just under 25,000, if I recall. It's in a letter of intent. I had sent it previously, I think, to the mayor in the past, and I can get you that again. I have a copy in my folder that I brought the actual draft of what I had previously sent, I believe. And it's just a 2-page document that you would put on your letterhead. Yeah. So, yeah. The second page has the actual cost. It's just under 25.
Anything else, council?
No, I mean, one last thing that was mentioned in our conversation I thought was that's pretty beneficial is if you're a citizen and you have a leak, you can get alerts that you have continual running water at your home that'll you know, kind of alleviate you coming at the end of the month with a $1,000 water bill. So anytime you have, again, it's a 24-hour.
Yeah, it's a 24-hour period. Usually, if you do a fixed-base system, it's a 24-hour period, and it would say that you've got continuous water leaks. So you could set up a leak alert. If you called in, you know, staff could print out a graphic, or if you do a customer portal, a dashboard, you could actually see it on an application. So all of that can be set up. That's a good point.
Can you keep?
Yeah, you keep that. Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, I had emailed it, I think, previously, but that is a copy for your available.
Anything else?
Thank y'all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Next is departmental reports. Administration, Ms. Vicky.
Well, of course, the most important thing that I have is election packets are due back in my office by Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock.
I think that's Thursday.
It's Friday, the 16th. Check the date, just make sure. Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock. So anybody that's interested in running for the positions we have open for city council or mayor, please make sure that you return that packet to me by 5 o'clock on Friday afternoon. For folks that are turning in packets, if you would come in earlier on Friday, just in case there is a rush at the end, because you never know when your car is going to break down. It's 5 o'clock on Friday. That's the law. So y'all have to make sure that you're in my office before then. Of course, There's no time after 5 o'clock, but there's plenty of time before. So let's make sure that we get those in time. Completed the 3-day boot camp for election training. So that went well, very interesting. Some good contacts with other city secretaries that have been more than helpful, and collected a lot of phone numbers that ladies and gentlemen that have faced certain situations, who have sort of prepared me or prepped me as best as they can do, with this being my first one, but I feel pretty confident in moving forward with the election.
Then it was stated that you went to election training. Would you mind like someone coming along on board and like helping you throughout this first one? Because like, you know, like even for me, I never knew how like being a city councilman was until I actually got into it,
Right.
to the position. So would you like for any additional help or anything of that matter?
Right, and what the other city secretaries have said is pick up the phone and call me if you have any question. And the election law is pretty clear. There are deadlines with election law that you just have to meet. It's not like, well, maybe I can get to that tomorrow. This is a deadline, just like we're talking about that deadline for 5 o'clock. If somebody comes sliding sideways into our office at 5:01, I cannot legally take that application. So a lot of different issues. I think Attorney Kerwin and I have a great relationship and working relationship. So I could ask for help from the county, but I think y'all had decided in the past, correct me if I'm wrong, but to not partner with the county, where we run our own election.
And we also have some pretty experienced election folks that be.
Exactly. The election judge is somebody that's very experienced with elections. So she will be the one that's running the data inside the election.
And I recall you all already in touch and have met.
Absolutely. Tomorrow's our first meeting. We'll start sitting down. There's a whole training handbook that I have to work through with them, make sure they don't have any questions. It's an in-depth process, but it's fun and interesting to me. Probably wouldn't be to a lot of people, but it is to me. And in moving forward, and like I said, the biggest part of that is hit the date. You gotta hit the dates. If you don't hit the dates, then I'm in violation.
Anything else? Is that all, Ms. Dickey? Okay. One thing, or a couple of quick things to mention. One involves the Prairie View Volunteer Fire Department, and they're requesting, and I shared this with Attorney Kerwin, so we're looking on it. So we want to add this to potentially the next agenda. It involves a piece of land that the ESD, Emergency Services District, purchased adjacent to the fire department. And they purchased it, I want to say almost a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I've spoken with them a couple of times, but now I guess they're acting on potentially building a new fire station. So we'll add that to the agenda, Ms. Dickey, for next time. I've got a copy here for you. The other thing is, met with someone a week ago, and as people continue to look up our situation here, and I'll just read this. Mayor Allen, just wanted to thank you for taking the time to meet on last week. The meeting was very insightful on all the major undertaking on the city developments. I spoke with my business associate who stated we should look for tracts of land in the 77484 zip code because the city is still split with the 77484 and 77445. So they're looking at doing something in Prairie View, but when they reference the zip code, they're still looking at the zip code issue that the city's had for 30 years or so. So again, just want to keep you abreast of what we're still continuing to deal with, and there's nothing according to the U.S. Postal Service that we can do until that 10-year time period has elapsed from the last request. But again, keeping you informed on those things. Another has to do with some another individual that I actually met that's out of Florida, Dr. Hill, or Dr. Hall. Anyway, we're working on some additional grants having directly to do with agriculture and training, working with our farmers, and already put her in touch with Dr. Quasi, who does grants over in the College of Business, and they're working on a similar project. So again, looking to get some additional new revenue and money into the city. Next item, item B, Mr. Johnson, finance, financial statements and such.
Good evening to the mayor, city council members, department heads, residents of the city of Prairie View, and those who are just visiting tonight, and what have you here. We're in the third month of this current fiscal period. If you look at page 1 of your financial, you will see that through December, we have revenue of $1.1 million versus a budget of $848,000, and that's a favorable variance there. Expenditures of $662,000 versus a budget of $805, and that's also a favorable variance of $143. If you go over to page 2, you'll see that our current cash position at the end of December, in all our coffers, we have basically $1,985,000. That's an increase this month over last month of about $84,000. Throughout the financials, you'll see overages where we're over budget. You'll see situations where we're under budget throughout this financial. But what I want to do now is go over to page 12, and I'm going to be a little redundant in something that you all have been talking about earlier tonight. And that's our position with wastewater treatment. If you go over to page 12, now I have to bring this to your attention. And on page 12, it says current liability for public works. And if you look under here under current liabilities, about the about the fourth line down, you'll see wastewater treatment payable, $438,000. That's what we owe the university, and that's over roughly less than a 2-year period of time. The line above that is you see $51,000. That's what we've accrued, and that we haven't received a bill, but we want to show you about what that cost would be. So if you add those two together, you're looking at roughly $481,000 that we do owe the university right now based on what we have been billed. Now we've been paying roughly 35% of the total bill. But that's what's on the books right now that we owe. If you look on the long-term liabilities, we still owe $87,362 on the note that we've been carrying for the past 15 years. So if you take the $481,000 and back on the cash position, Public Works showed that it had in the bank $310,000. What that is telling you is that no way we could have paid all this money if we had paid it when we received it. Okay? So I just want to bring this to your attention that that's where we are, and it's constantly increasing. So that's the main thing that I want to emphasize to you. As far as financials go, we've got the W-2s out on a timely basis. We are getting the 1099s out, but we do need some W-9 forms. The W-9 form has the information on it that we need to be able to send 1099s out to the different vendors who require one. And so we're working on that. We did get an extension as far as filing 1099s because of that fact. And so it won't the city won't be penalized in any way, shape, or form. We also filed the annual report for Economic Development B. It's been filed with the state. So we've got Economic B well within compliance with the state with their obligations for filing. That's basically what I can discuss with you guys tonight. Also, we did add what y'all requested from me. And in your package, there's a listing of the checks that's written. And that list is from the major banks. It starts at the first page of it, and this is the list right here. You should have that. Those are the checks that were written. The first bank, the general account. Those are primarily all of the activity pertaining to general administration. The next page has Municipal Court Bank. That's the next bank that we write quite a few checks off of. And the third one is Public Works on the last page. Those are the banks that we write most of the checks off of. And each check that was written during the month is listed there. So if you have a question, that shows you everything that was written. So if you do have a question about that, feel free to ask myself or what have you. For instance, I will share the police department. They don't waste any time in taking care of their capital budget. But if you look at the third page there, you'll see a $18,000, excuse me, the first page, there's an $18,000 check that we wrote, and that was a down payment on the police cars. The second page, rather, on the municipal court, you'll see Caldwell Chevrolet Company. That $18,000, that's the down payment on the Chevrolets, the Tahoe that we, have we got them in, Chief? That we just got in. Also, the chief has gotten his people armed. They got their slings for your
AR-15s?
Yeah, for your AR-15s. That's that 4,080. And then he got his radar equipment, 5,880. And all that is within his projected capital budget. That just gives you an idea of what those charges are, what you see here. If you flip over to the third page here, let's look at Public Works. There's something out of MDN Enterprises, 9,312. That right there is buying repair parts that are needed for the different repairs that our people are doing. So the labor you're saving, because they're making those repairs. And the mayor oftentimes mentioned that to you guys. So all we had to pay for repair parts there. If the labor was there, it'd probably be triple that. If labor was involved in those repairs that they're doing. You don't see USW on this particular report because we got their invoice in, but we'll probably have two of them on the next report. But we wasn't able to pay it on this particular month, but we are paying it in the month of February. Excuse me, it got paid in January, and then we're looking at moving into February. But that gives you an idea of, that gives you a full printout of what's being paid and who is paid to during the month. Yes, sir.
You stated that there's an annual report for Economic 4B. Did you send that to us, or where is that at?
No, y'all haven't gotten a copy. I've got to give it to the president of Economic Development B. We just filed it. And I'll get that to them, and then they'll get it to you.
Okay. Second, we have the crime control and prevention report. I'm not seeing economic development listed in here. Why is
No, because I just got it caught up. I just got the data for it. I got it caught up through September to be able to file the final report. For me to be able to prepare the report to get it caught up to date, I have to get their budget. I don't have their budget yet. To be able to include that in the report, then I'll have it caught up. Hopefully, if I get their budget within a week or so, then I'll have a complete, I can have them caught up by the next reporting period. And then we'll provide the data to them, and then they'll provide the data to you all. Whichever.
Well, again, so like we get this monthly, or however we get this, why aren't we receiving the information?
I just told you, they didn't get the data to me, but with the transition that took place over there, I had no data. So if I had no data, I couldn't prepare a report. And they just got the data to me, what the data being the bank statements and what have you. And so I had to get the fiscal year done because that was a deadline, January 31st. And we met that deadline. And so we had to process all that data. And now they're in the process of getting me I do have the bank statements, but I don't have their budget. And I want to prepare a report that does have the budget in it, so we can check the variances out and what have you. Now, I could just prepare a report without the budget, but I'd love to have the budget. But if I can't get that, then I'm going to have to do the next best thing, which is just prepare the data without the budget. But I have to get the data.
Council, any other questions, Mr. Johnson? So, Mr. Johnson, you don't have a particular category that you can credit the $258,000 savings on page 1?
No,
Okay.
you can't credit savings.
No, I mean-
Your savings basically would have to, when you say savings, hit me out.
Well, for example, we've been tracking, as you say, we've got the costs for public works materials.
Right.
But we've been tracking because we know what plumbers and others charge for those particular works. And right now, we're right at $200,000 in savings by bringing that work in-house. And I'm just looking at your 258 versus the different work orders adding up to just that $200,000.
Yeah, no, I have no way of being able to do that. I have no way to be able to do that because I don't have the expertise
Yeah.
of what the labor costs would have been.
Right. Can we do this? Now that we've had the guys on for about 13 months now, maybe 14, can we take a look at a prior 12-month period?
We have that.
In what?
Go to page, just what you asked for.
Okay.
Let's look at public works. Go to page 15. You have current year, prior year. And if you're talking about repairs and maintenance, it's higher. 50,000 versus 20, 50 versus 26. And that right there is basically going to be timing. We have to further look at the different details and see what's created that difference there.
The cost savings you're talking about, Mr. Mayor, that's...
Yes, sir.
That's what the labor versus the materials to get the work done because the labor's in-house. Is that what you're referring to?
No, we had, like, for example, when there's, like some of the bills that I used to look at was like $4,000, $6,000, $8,000, which included labor plus material. So there should be something showing that, as you stated so eloquently yourself, Mr. Johnson, something showing that because we're doing so much of those water sewer repairs and infrastructure repairs in-house, these numbers don't work based on that.
Well, what that's telling you is what you actually incurred. And basically, you have to theorize that, okay, if we didn't do it in-house, then you'd have to do a projection on what that would have cost you. And, not having, that has to be done by someone who works with that particular activity. For instance, like you were just saying, from myself, we have no idea what the labor would be. USW, someone could help you on
Okay,
that.
so we can get you the work orders that we show, which have the dollar figures based on the lengths that plumbers have
And we
been charging and that
could
sort
do
of
a
thing.
projection then on what the labor would have been.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay,
I have to get the complete activity, right?
no problem.
From that's going to help us to know how much money we. So I mean, the money we're talking about savings is what we put into man people, is what we put into employees. So are you talking about tracking, say, billable hours? Like, so to do this, there's a billable hour and that you just wanted to know how much it would cost, or?
No, what I was looking for was to see, because it had come up actually previously, and it might have been 7, 8 months ago, where we saw the costs in public works had drastically decreased. And that's why these two aren't matching up with what had come up before. For example, all the work that we were paying independent contractors for, now that it's being done in-house, that number, according to the records we've been keeping and not paying those bills, I'm just not seeing it here, but I think you showed it to us previously.
Yeah.
So I don't know why it's not continuing, or maybe,
Well,
you know what?
what's that?
We're competing against our own numbers. That's why. Okay, I got my answer. Because they've been here
Yeah,
somewhere
right.
around 13, 14
Been in-
months.
Right, you're competing.
Now
with
we're
your own numbers.
competing against our own
We'd have to
numbers,
go
so
back
that's
a year or
why.
so, but you'll see that they were somewhat higher.
Okay.
Very high if we get back in the
Because
7 days.
what we incurred now that we didn't have for council's benefit, the broken pipes under University Drive, we had to pull in outside specialists certified by TxDOT to cut holes in the street because, you know, not just anyone's allowed to do that, so we couldn't do it in-house. So those kind of bills would have been within that last session, so
We're
that's
also
why.
seeing a reduction in vacuum truck expenditures. We used to have some enormous vacuum truck expense, $15,000 a month. With the upgrades at the lift stations now, you're not having to call out those vacuum trucks the way we used to.
Absolutely, especially at Greenfield and Old Houston where we
those vacuum
upgraded
trucks
from.
are awfully expensive.
Gotcha, okay. I understand
Because
that
we
now
had looked at one
because,
time buying our own vacuum truck to try to cut that cost.
yeah, they are expensive. Anything else from Mr. Johnson, council? Okay, thank you, sir. Municipal court, Judge, anything you want to share? What's going on there?
A little bit.
Okay.
Some of it has to do with municipal court, but I just kind of thought it was time to give an update on some of the activity for the FEMA recovery.
Please.
Okay, but first of all, court. Anybody have any questions? I'll hand it out to the court. Okay, thank you. Okay, I do want to give an update on some FEMA activity. And so, all this time since we have the disaster declared, we've been working with FEMA in terms of giving them the documentation and the data that they need in order to help us recover from the Hurricane Harvey. So, January 26th, we had a site inspection for the damages that were done to our City Hall building and to our generator. So we had mitigation specialists come out as well as site inspectors. They took a look at the damages that were done, did some estimates on the costs, as well as some possible mitigation ideas to prevent the same damage from occurring when we have another storm. Now, we had the site inspection for the lift stations because they were damaged during the hurricane. We had that site inspection on Thursday, February the 8th. Same people, not same people, but same departments, site inspectors who specialize in that, as well as mitigation specialists. And so that was a more intensive and extensive inspection. So we expect to get reports sometime soon on that, and then we'll know what we can expect next. Okay, so that's the update on FEMA. I do meet with our FEMA representative every week, generally on Thursdays, where we just kind of plug in data, answer questions. If I have to, I'll call in the public works people or whomever was the expert during that damage event. The other thing is tomorrow, February 13th, is our go live date for a new program that the city will be using to assist with code enforcement and permit management. And so training has been completed on that, and our go live date for that is tomorrow.
And the FEMA inspection was a little dirty, you left that part out.
I have my boots on.
Yeah, well, that reminded me.
So, do you have any questions?
And, yeah, go ahead.
I'd just like to reiterate, basically upon what my counterpart said, keep doing it. Good job, yeah, outstanding.
Thank you.
Yeah, helpful to the city.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Police report, Chief Solomon?
If you guys have a report, I have, unless you have some comments or some questions or something.
I have a question.
Okay.
Access to the gate.
Mm-hmm.
Will we be getting access to the gate?
Sure you will.
We have time for it.
No, anytime, like, we actually ordered some more remotes because we ran out. We ordered some more. It's going to depend on how many we're going to need. The time is when would you like to park back there? Is it any time you come to City Hall or doing, of course, special events? Because what we did out here was we had everything moved back there. Any city cars, with the exception of the judge, because hers is right next to her door. But anybody else is parking back here, that way we leave all this clear for everyone.
Mainly for city meetings like tonight, but I think
Okay.
it would be bad if we just had to listen to anybody.
Even if I was 5 minutes later, I probably wouldn't have anywhere to park for city council meetings.
Okay. If you guys like, we can get those to you tonight.
And what we need to do, Chief, is to make sure all of us that have one sign off for it.
Oh, yeah, everybody's
Because
signing off.
the biggest reason why the gate is there is, you know, to protect our officers, the city property, the new vehicles, the 6 new vehicles we've got,
Right.
the equipment, things like that. So that way, as any of us leave, we make sure we turn those things in so you don't have to pre-code all of them. Because it's not like a key where you just change the lock. And are calls for service up, Chief, at 187?
Calls for service fluctuate up and down. Looks like it depends on, it just kind of depends on the month. They go up and down. So we've been as much as, I think, 280, and now we're at 187 this month. So it just kind of fluctuates up and down. Yes, sir.
Okay, first off, congratulations, we appreciate you with the new officers. My question is, with the addition of with 3, where are we at with staff right now?
With the addition of those 3, we still have 2 more to hire. We had 2 more people into our function that did not make it through that entire function, and that was due to background situations, so they didn't make it. So we still have 2. What we're trying to do is we're trying to stagger these shifts. Like on Saturday and Friday nights, we've been having 2 officers out, at least until about 3 a.m. in the morning. So we're trying to make sure we stagger those shifts. Also, we're starting to send officers to different training and getting officers with backgrounds where they can help us in different areas. One of the officers that you've seen here tonight, he was actually going to be leaving us this week, but he told me Friday he decided to stay here. Even though we're paying him about $6,000 less than this other agency was going to pay him, he likes the direction that we're going. And this officer here is really good when it comes to community relations, and that's what we want to do with him. So we're trying to look for officers that can help this city out and do different things. Even when you're a small agency, you have to specialize in some things where it works for the city and the citizens.
One, I just want to commend the police department again on the 4-step progress that you've shown and kind of moving towards. 2 questions. 1, how many total officers do we currently have?
Total now, we have a total of 7. Now, that's not including, when I say 7, that's including everyone except for the investigator, which is the senior sergeant. So it would be 8.
With him? The 8 doesn't include you?
8 doesn't include.
So we have a total of 9. Okay. The other question is, you submitted on command proposal restructure presentation January 6, 2017.
Yes, sir.
Following that plan that you laid out for us, kind of where are you at with that, and where do you see us? How do we continue to support you?
That plan is, it's moving well. We are, like I said, we have 2 more of those part-timers to bring in. But the plan is, I think we're ahead of schedule. I think it's working really well. We're hiring some officers who have prior FTO experience, which is a field training officer experience. That gives us a chance. We're looking to maybe start hiring people with no experience or just out of the academy. That's a rough thing to do if you don't have the right system set up. So I think we're moving forward with getting an FTO program that will help us do that. And we can give you that plan anytime you'd like to see it. If that's something you guys would like to see, the FTO plan, it's open to you taking a look at it.
Chief, while you're there, if you could just update the council on the ordinance officer White, haven't gone to training, and we're just about to start rolling that out.
Yes, just like the judge said earlier, I came into the training that they were doing the other day. That training is going to help us to do a lot of things. It will also help us to move this thing forward and to have people where you can see exactly where we are, who we've talked to, when they've been talked to, and that way we can, I've got him now looking at different areas. Each day he's still doing some patrolling, but during the course of his patrol, we're giving him time during the course of the day to look at those violations, to talk to people, because that's what it is. It's about getting people to comply, rather than just running out giving people tickets for this and for that. It's about trying to get them into compliance. And so we've talked to a few people, and a couple people have. They've started cleaning their areas up and getting into compliance. We had a gentleman down here with the card. So we're trying to get him into that first. It's first talking to people, getting them into compliance. And then after that doesn't work, then we go into the code enforcement mode.
So, just a quick question on the ordinance violation. So going forward with the new process, kicking off tomorrow, going forward, will the ordinance violation report be given by Officer White?
Yes.
So we'll be receiving a separate monthly report.
And we want to certainly thank former Councilwoman Marie Herndon, because she's been helping with that admin side to help free up Officer White for like the field part, but then the letters and the follow-up and organizing all that paperwork is a integral part of it in preparing it if and when it gets to judges' bailiwick. We've got to have all our ducks lined up, something that we didn't really have before.
Yeah.
So many cases had to be, dismissed or kicked out, things like that. So again, just want to thank her as well. She's volunteering her time and doing that. So we appreciate it. Anything else on ordinances? No? Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Certainly appreciate what you're doing. Public Works. There's been approximately, I know I referenced it before, and basically the TML, Intergovernmental Risk Pool, the insurance claims, we've actually received checks to the tune of $90,000, over $600, I think it's $618 to be exact. And for anything that you don't have, Mr. Johnson, here's copies of it. So, and I was informed this afternoon that there's another check on one of the lift station claims that's being processed and should be in the mail, if not this evening, tomorrow. So we want to keep up with that, so I made sure I collected these for you. So these are your copies. You can email them to me. I want to make sure you have them so that we're balancing the claim status. I've got a report that I need to, actually I'll give you this. So let's keep those together, because that's a sort of a claim report. Yeah, this is something Ms. Dickey. And you and I can go over that maybe in the next couple of days, because I just want to balance. We got a check, we got a claim, and where don't we have a check, and I can get back with Ms. Butcher or whoever with TML Risk Pool and make sure we get the rest of those checks as well. Other than that, as Mr. Johnson shared, the lift stations are functioning much better with the upgrades that have been done, and the costs and expenses have truly gone down in those categories. So that's been a blessing, but even more so, it's been a lot better for the residents, because many of those things affected them. Anything else on, well, no, I got something else on Public Works. I guess I'll just mention it now. Had a meeting with U.S. Department of Agriculture a little over a week ago, and have another meeting coming up. And a couple of things that we're talking about. They really weren't aware of all this new activity that's going on in the city, and now they're looking to come in and do some assisting while Attorney Kerwin is following up on that Odyssey scenario with the former recycled loan program that the city had with USDA. We're working on a grant for them to pay the city engineer to do a report to help us pursue going after the city's own wastewater treatment plant. So that took a little time, but we're now there, and USDA, we're comparing Texas Water Development Board rates that I met with several months back with the USDA rates, and the overall program may actually be better with USDA, but we'll take a look at both after we get the information at an upcoming meeting that we have. So we've been working on that aspect as well, and I think, unless there are any other questions under Public Works, anything that, yes?
Do you have the RFPs? I guess we've been talking about the RFP for the EDA grant, and then do you have any additional information or data?
The EDA grant, the $1 million James Muse Parkway Infrastructure Grant, the bid requests are being prepared by project management, working with our city engineer, David Leindecker. We had a meeting last week, so those are literally coming up kind of any day now as they finalize the paperwork that Austin is approving. So very, very close to dirt being dug and putting those things out. Anything else for the Public Works? Okay, next we have council reports. Councilman Rowland.
Good evening, citizens. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Just want to say thank you for allowing me to continue to serve. Again, the Boy Scouts meets here on the first and third Wednesday of the month. We were here last Wednesday as we were trying to move two students who we've been working with since about the last 5 years. They're Life Scouts working on their Eagle Scout project. Please continue to support them here in the community. Also, we have the Prairie View Chamber of Commerce meets on the fourth Thursday. So we'll be meeting February 22nd. Please come out at noon as we talk about business development opportunities and moving the city of Prairie View forward. Thank you.
Good evening. The biggest thing that I want to talk about is hosting sports football camp for our third year in a row. We will be hosting a football camp at Waller High School. Last year, we were able to host over 100 kids absolutely free with coaches from guys who played from college all the way up to the pros. They donated their time to spend with kids from Waller County, Katy, Navasota, Belleville. But the only way we can have a free camp is we had sponsorships. So we're looking for sponsorships. Anybody who wants to donate to the kids, and the money goes to us feeding. We feed them twice. We have games. We're planning on having bounce houses, all of that for the kids, as well as T-shirts, and they left with bags and trophies and all of those kind of things. So we're looking for sponsors. And so if you would like to sponsor or just give a donation to Hustle Sports so we can continue to, bless these kids, because if you look in the area, there are no football camps. And if there are one, there aren't any free ones. So realizing our very first year we hosted the camp, we charged, because that's what we thought it was supposed to be. We realized that when we were that age, we couldn't afford camp. So everything that we couldn't cover through sponsors, we pay for out of our own pockets, because we understand the need in this area. There's nothing like it in the area. And unfortunately, we have more kids from around the area than we had from in the area. So we're trying to push for Waller kids, Prairie View kids, Hempstead kids first, And we anticipate over 200 kids this year. Like I said, we had over 100 kids last year, and we had to turn some kids away because, you know, we ran out of T-shirts. But the more resources we're able to collect, the more kids we can serve. And so, if you would like to donate or be a sponsor, please contact me, and we'll make it happen. As always, it's a pleasure to serve this community. It's a pleasure to serve you, and I look forward to moving the city forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Jones?
Good evening. I had the pleasure of going out with the Eddie Gamma chapter Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated to talk to some of the Boy Scouts. It was kind of like inspirational. Only a short amount of time that I was in the same seat as them. As we'll be doing more mentorship and helping out with Troop 1906, helping young men be productive out in the community, things of that such. I also had the opportunity to sit on an HBCU Rising panel, basically having a discussion of how basically college towns came about, how beautiful historically black college came about, and the work that we could and should be doing as young African American students. Update upon the adoption of Jones Elementary is in the next couple of weeks. We just did background checks and got about 25 to 30 students to mentor the elementary students. And then when we get feedback, then the principal said that our adoption will be official with Purdy and them adopting Jones Elementary as a school to give back and mentor to our youth in the community, as well as I want to let you guys know that after this meeting, that we all, as a big family, should head down to the Baby Dome as our college, Purdy and University takes on Jackson State. But the game is televised and on ESPN.
You know, kidding.
Oh, I can get you in. You got my phone number. But as Jonathan Run said, it's a great opportunity to serve. I continue to be a humble servant, so thank you.
Councilwoman?
Good evening to everyone, and I want the citizens to know as well as the council, I did follow up with Dr. Finley concerning our wastewater situation, and Dr. Finley will be getting back with me in the next couple of weeks. I'll provide him the information he needed from our surrounding cities concerning our cost for water in both Waller and Hempstead, and he is willing to work with us. So he said he will get back with me in the next couple of weeks, as well as we're going to be inviting Mr. Poole and Mr. Francis to attend those meetings as well, since they were two of the people that were here back when a verbal agreement was supposed to be made as far as the pricing for wastewater treatment with the university.
Councilwoman Barnett?
Yes, good afternoon. Last week, there was a meeting at Walton High School in reference to the speed rail. And of course, some of the people there were interested in selling their property in reference to the rail. But the general census is opposing the rail coming to the area. But they have also picked a rail station to be at 290 in Mangum, which is the old Northwest Mall. So if you missed a meeting at Waller or Navasota or Cypress, they will be scheduling new meetings for you to come out and listen and voice your opinion as to how you feel about the speed rail coming to this area. And although it won't be affecting the city in land mass, it could affect the city economically. So, excuse me? What, economically?
Hold on. Speaking, go ahead, Councilwoman.
So, if you miss the meetings, next time when they schedule them, go out and listen and see what's being said.
Thank you, ma'am. As I shared, there are a couple of things that I want to, again, bring home. The TML insurance claim payment so far is just a little under $91,000 in hand, with at least another check that we know of coming. But I want to make sure that this is money that the city has already spent, that we're getting back. I want to make sure the public and council, because I know sometimes we talk about, but I want to make sure it's related to, as Mr. Johnson said, some of the monies that is spent in one category, this money will be going back into that to offset some of that. And same thing with the FEMA claims, that Judge Alexander is doing just an incredible job of really staying on top of those details for us, and I certainly appreciate that help. It would be extremely difficult without you, but that's also insurance. FEMA, look at FEMA's insurance. This is money, we've already fixed these lift stations and other equipment, and we've expended the manpower during Hurricane Harvey and those sort of things. We've used our vehicles, our law enforcement personnel. We paid those overtimes. This is an insurance claim, so everything we get back from FEMA is extra because it's already been expended. So we've been taking the time, even the damage, the huge damage on our physical building here, that, you know, we had water in way too many areas that we've never seen water in before, as well as maybe a few that we might have. But all of this is to help rectify, and this is money coming from whether it's the insurance company with TML or the federal government with the Federal Emergency Management System with FEMA. So again, I want to make sure you understand that we're just not talking about those. This is money we spent that we're getting back. So it's important to note that. We also have the potential of being the cricket sports capital of the U.S. Katy, cricket is second only behind soccer, and it wasn't that many years ago, none of you knew what soccer was. Back home, we called it football. But soccer is the largest sport in the world and has really taken the U.S. by storm. It's in most schools, including Prairie View. We've got a new soccer field at the university. Well, cricket has that same potential, only we sometimes talk about the things we can do to bring others to the city, to visit, spend money, become aware of, and possibly invest in Prairie View. Well, this gentleman finalized a purchase on 84 acres of land. So whatever you think about cricket, that's no joke. It's right next to 290 between Leendo Parkway and Richards Road. And I met with the athletic director. We don't have cricket there, but when he found out it was the second largest sport in the world, we're discussing it, and the owners have already agreed to let the university team practice there. But to have 3 cricket fields in Katy, College Station only has 4. They do have cricket, but they only have 4. Houston has 9, and they're kind of spread out. There's no complex like this in the United States. There'll be 12 to 14 cricket fields, and this gentleman has already invested in additional land for food services that could provide jobs for our students, that some of them drive all the way to Cypress to work at now, as well as services, property tax increases, and sales tax in the city of Prairie View. So don't look at cricket with whatever you do or don't know about it. Look about the fact that these folks from all around the country, LA to Florida to New York, who do play cricket actively. We have 51 people, according to Mr. Daniels, on campus who are looking to play cricket already. So we've got cricket players at our university. So this is going to be a real interesting progress. They've already started digging today. So they're starting to get these things ready. And again, the additional revenue and tax dollars that will come to the city, that's the type of thing that we're looking at. The $350,000 CDBG infrastructure grant we received last week, the required federal Comanche Nation's okay. So there's no environmental report, so it's also on the last phase and is projected to be kicked off between late March and early April, according to the engineering company. There's another project with the Houston Urban League the university, a private business owner, and the city of Prairie View, where we're signing a memorandum of understanding to get involved with providing job training in the city of Prairie View. There's some 500 jobs short in the University of Houston. These folks have money from the state and federal government to train, and we're trying to finalize having them do the training here and train folks here and provide jobs here. And then the ultimate goal is the container project is supposed to go somewhere up in Liberty, where a lady has 50 acres, and provide homes for homeless veterans. So a very noble project that we were able to, we haven't finalized all of it yet, but it looks extremely good. And I spoke with the gentleman from the Urban League earlier today. So we're just, again, excited about that, and we'll keep that in front of you. We're finalizing and waiting on the final TxDOT response for a new Checkers restaurant franchise and gas station right on the corner of University Drive and Highway 290. You see those two houses on the right, those are the ones that are locked up in those deals, pending TxDOT approval, and then the franchisee is ready to go forward. So again, additional revenue, tapping into all that money running up and down 290 and trying to give people a reason to get off at our exit and spend some money here. So it will be right on the corner of the freeway and University Drive. And want to thank State Representative Cecil Bell for his support and assistance in helping to arrange some of those final TxDOT meetings that went real well. And now it's in the final stage. And according to TxDOT management, no one who's got to that final stage has been refused. So keep your fingers crossed. We're hopeful on there. The Prairie View A&M architecture students, they're assisting with the design of the Prairie View Cricket Complex. And so far, that's the name that the guys agreed to use. I couldn't think of anything better, and it hit home. But to be able to have that right here and named after our city would be critical, even with highway signs. So just, again, they're always talking about Prairie View. So they agreed, and they had one meeting with the architecture department and have another upcoming meeting with the architecture department. And I want to thank our EDC director, Vita Brown, for being involved in that project and what have you. So also with a potential, they're going to look up and bring back to the council, working with the chief, a necessary potential expansion of our PV police department. So Chief has an upcoming meeting with them as well. Am I right, Chief?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so, and that'll be, brought back to council, as well as looking to have them get involved with designing and organizing the parking inside of our facility, so that as our own guys in-house have been doing the asphalt, we'll be able to have our city staff and council and what have you park back there, so that there is ample parking, because we took some parking by putting the fence up. So as Chief stated earlier, we're looking to move those of us behind the gate to open it up for residents that have, the same or close to the same amount of parking in front. I mentioned the USDA, we're pursuing a financial grant for a city wastewater treatment plant. The final thing is, starting tomorrow in this room, we're having our smart city meetings where we need resident input. That's student residents and adult residents. We need your input because you all know a lot more about technology. The research department is going to share some of the kind of things that are on the table potentially, and they need to know, what do you need? For example, my thought is a City of Prairie View Wi-Fi, just like you have one on campus. So when people come out in the city, then they're able to study and again, not use their minutes, but be on the city's Wi-Fi. All of those things, including additional street lights for safety, cameras, just all sorts of technology that you'll be able to do and access through your cell phone. That's the smart city. We heard some things about finding leaks earlier. That's smart technology. So if we're able to get the ultimate grant after this one, then that would pay for a lot of the things and keep us from having to pay, because smart meters is a part of smart technology. So it would be in that $1.5 million to $2 million grant. So it'll be submitted fairly quickly, so those meetings are taking place. Also, as I guess they heard about our grant in collaboration between the city and the university, and as a result, I've been asked to fly up with a couple of university people, and they're flying us up to the Smart and Connected Cities Conference in Kansas City, Missouri. They want to hear what we did, what we're trying to do, to share with others. So we're excited because they'll be hearing the word Prairie View once or twice. Any questions, Councilman Jones?
My question is, so, upon the pavement and the parking lot, I know last time we had talked about like moving it up, to like the driveway fix, like some of the, potholes and things of that such. Is there any update upon that, like, move it forward or extend it? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, no, they're absolutely, yeah, we've had the water and stuff, but the plan is to do all of it, pretty much from the street, almost all the way back to the fence, to really, you know, like you said, make it more of a paved situation. They're just doing it in between fixing water, sewer leaks, new connections, those sort of things, but yeah, absolutely.
We're talking about though when you first drive, not behind the gate, we're talking about when you first drive in.
From 290.
Yeah, that part has not been done.
No, a lot of it hasn't been done. The rest of it is just based on their time to do it in between the other projects, like we've got new connections where people have been moving in, so they've had to do that, or other repairs, but, or the weather, of course. But yeah, as it dries up, they'll really be able to finish it. But from 290, almost all the way back to, the back fence. I'm sorry, when I said fence, I meant the fence all the way in the back of the property, just to asphalt all of the city property to an extent. That way we'll have lined out parking. As we park back there to open it up for residents up front, we won't be parking haphazardly like we are right now.
Who currently, so in the report, this may be an administrative question, I don't know. We talked last time and you said you were going to give us a list of the permits. And so who has that for me to go to look? Like we received over the last 2 months about $80,000 in permits. So if we wanted to look at those permits, who has that who has that?
We got a permit file, permit book, right, Mr. Durham? Isn't it all in the book? There's a permit book that you can look at. Yeah, yeah, it's right back behind the counter in the drawers.
No problem.
Sure, no problem at all. Anything else? Okay, item number 4. Consider and take action to adopt the vehicle use policy for the 2018 city's Ford Explorer city administration vehicle. Attorney Kerwin.
I was asked to draft some policy dealing with the use of this vehicle, and that, do y'all have a copy of that policy? No?
We did get it.
Okay.
So you want to carry it over? Okay, we'll table that.
I guess my question, I don't know if this is for the question that, the conversation that we had, or I don't know, is this what you were talking about?
What?
So, I know we need a policy for the vehicle, and I think that'll kind of help us to move forward. I guess we do need an understanding, and I think Ms. Dickey also kind of clarified it before the meeting, that if a council person needs to use a vehicle and we reserve the vehicle, the mayor does not need to approve us using the city vehicle. See,
That's not true.
No. What's not true?
The mayor is going to approve it. It's got to be in writing, and I want to make sure the elements that we need are in it. So,
No.
as long as it fits within policy, you might be fine, but maybe I'm
So I
mistaken
guess
what you're
just as a
saying.
clarification, right? Because
Okay.
again, there's a policy on the use of. The mayor does not approve travel for city council. The mayor doesn't give the approval. Now, if council comes up with a form and documentation that the mayor brings forth and we approve that, then we know that if we're gonna go somewhere and it says to fill out these 3 things, we fill out those 3 things and there's no problem. But I just want to make sure that there's a clarification on there's no approval needed for the mayor to say, if I'm going to Austin and if I submit something to the city secretary and I say I'm going to Austin on February 23rd for a TML meeting, or for whatever it may be, and I need it for these 4 hours and I'll be back, the confirmation should come from the city secretary, and then I should need to fill out whatever, if it's a form or policy that we say the mayor approves employees travel. And so I just want to make sure that we're clear on whatever policy that we don't have in front of us that's on the agenda, that we know what we're talking, that we move forward with that in mind. That there's
That is, you will have a policy, and y'all can debate what goes in that policy.
You have a policy?
I sent a policy.
Okay, is there any way we can get copies of it so we can quit sitting
I
up
sent
and
it to the
debating
city
what we think
secretary
or
and to the
whatever?
mayor on the 8th.
Can we get a copy of it so we can just go ahead and see it?
I can send you a copy. Yes.
So we'll table that until council has had a chance to receive it, review it, and we'll carry it over. Okay. Is that amenable with council? So we can table it by consensus?
You have a motion to table?
Yeah.
A motion to table until the next
Mr.
meeting?
Mayor,
Councilman Randall.
I move that we table item number 4 until we receive.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we table item 4, consider and take action to adopt the vehicle use policy for the 2018 Ford Explorer. You've heard the motion, or further questions? Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to amend my motion to table until the next meeting this month.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Chair will accept that friendly amendment from Councilman Randall. You ready?
in my readiness is that I don't want the travel that what I've already submitted for February 23rd to be held up. So I just want to put it for the record. Again, there's a reason why there's the executive body and legislative body. We don't need approval from the mayor to use the city vehicle. All we need to do is make sure no one's using it, and we put it out in front for everybody. That's in my readiness.
Well, I will speak to that in readiness now. I think, as I recall, your request simply said city business, and I think you need to specify that what city business it is, because that's very broad. And so, as long as you resubmit with what it is you're going to do, because ultimately, if you read the charter, while you do have executive, judicial, and all that other stuff, so much of this stuff falls on the mayor's head. And before I give the key, I am going to have what is comfortably needed to protect the city's assets. And once you give me that, I'm sure I'll have no problem. But city business is very vague, and that's not enough.
Again, Mr. Mayor,
Yes?
you said you had a form already. We don't have the form in front of us, so stop talking. Again, I don't have a problem with filling out the form. You said you had a form. We don't have a form.
No,
So
I
let's-
didn't. I didn't say we had a form.
Call for the question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Item 5, consider and take action on zoning map amendment ordinance. Are we ready for item 5?
Yes, sir.
Council, okay. Applicant Frank Vasquez Jr., address and legal description, 44222 U.S. Business 290, Prairie View, Texas, 77446, S714100, Prairie Hills, Block 1, Lot 2, west 51.48 feet, 51.49 of 17 acreage, .2364, existing zoning, mixed use, proposed zoning, general commercial for auto dealer use.
This item was previously considered by council. It was tabled so that I could do some research on what the definition of residential properties meant. If you remember, if he's doing a used car dealership, if he's adjacent or abuts a residential property, then he's required to have a 15-foot buffer on each side of whatever residential property there is. I did speak with Mr. Vasquez before the meeting. If you do a used car dealer, you're also required to pave any spot that the car is going to be for sale. So he knows that now. He'd have to do the buffer, and he would also be required to place the vehicles for sale within a certain feet of any public right-of-way or any adjacent property. So if it was impossible for this piece of property to meet those criterias physically, then you would deny the zoning, okay? If Mr. Vasquez wants to go forward with the zoning, knowing that those are the restrictions, he can certainly do that, and you can rezone the property. He will have to comply with all of that, because those are, the way that the code reads is that it defines what residential use is. Residential use is single family. Residential use is, pull the definition up for you. The term residential use shall be construed to include single-family residential uses, two-family uses, and multi-family residential apartment or townhouse uses. So if next to him are apartments or houses being rented, it's residential use. And so he'll have to do the buffer. So if he's got a over a 10,000 square foot lot, if physically he can meet those requirements, that's his choice to go forward, but yes.
Did he not do the buffer?
He hasn't done anything yet because he doesn't have the rezoning. So if you grant the zoning to mixed use, okay, I'm sorry, to general commercial from mixed use, and he wants to put a car dealership on there, he has to comply with all of the zoning ordinances.
Before he receives a permit?
Before he receives a permit, yes.
Okay, so we got to check and balance.
Okay.
I guess part of the issue why this came back was why would we go ahead and give him permission to move forward to go to GC, because then he wouldn't be able, so part of it was, part of the process we were trying to get to is, did the person have to have the particular property meeting the parameters, the 15 that we said, we didn't know if that could happen prior to us giving the approval. If we give the GC approval, are we giving the GC approval a general GC, which my thoughts was that's what the process is. It doesn't say, so he may be saying he's going to use a car dealership. If we give the GC approval and he doesn't do a car dealership, it doesn't go back to mixed use. It just means he doesn't do a car dealership and he can move on and do whatever he wants because it's a GC. And so I want to make sure that we're in our process that we have documented either does he comply from the beginning before we give the GC, or are we going to just give a GC and say, oh yeah, and then you have the permit to actually open the car dealership after. Do you know which way we're going?
Let me speak to the permitting process, because this is very similar to what council did a couple of weeks ago with the 3 zoning changes that you approved. The inhabitants, for example, where the lady wanted to move in a manufactured home, it was not stated that she would have to do certain things to her property before she could move it in. You rezoned it to allow for manufactured homes. So to say someone has to do things before we do it, the permitting process catches that. Because to your point, Councilman, if Mr. Vasquez decided to do something else, if he didn't have a permit for it, he can't do it. And he can't even get the permit for the used car dealership, should council change the zoning, until it meets the qualifications that council stated he needed. So there's a check and balance in the way it's done. He wouldn't have a choice of switching on you.
But
Yeah,
if the reason why I say that, if the gentleman decides he don't want to do the car dealership and he has the general commercial, he can then sell the property to someone else for the GC, and it's not that they have the fact to open it. We don't have control of what it was originally supposed to be, and so I don't have either way. I'm just trying to figure out. I think the majority of our conversation last time was, does he even meet the qualifications to move to the, since his application says auto dealership, does he meet the auto dealership qualifications? Not currently.
That was one of the issues, is whether or not, and after doing some research, one of the issues I wasn't sure of was whether the property could physically meet those qualifications. So if the property was too small if you had 15 foot and 15 foot and there's no property left, he could not physically meet those qualifications, so you would not rezone that property. Does that make sense? But his property is, it might not be what how it wants it to configure the property, but his property is 10,000 square feet, so I think you can do a 15 foot and a 15 foot on each side.
Go ahead.
My question is, because I thought when we met last time, I thought the instruction or what you suggested to him was to go ahead and mark off that 15 foot and to make sure that he was gonna.
I have not spoken, we spoke tonight, because he
No, I'm
was
talking about
not.
when we had the last city council meeting, we discussed in length.
Mhm.
And he was standing right there, and I thought when you were reading it, because you were looking up the one from Ms. McCardle and everybody else, and I thought he was gonna go and mark off that 15 foot to see how much space he would have left.
We
I
can
thought
ask
that
him
was-
if he's done that, he's here tonight. I don't know if he's done that or not.
Mr. Vasquez, why don't you come up in case council has some specific, particular questions?
Yeah, you're right. The conversation was that he was gonna go back, he was gonna measure out the property, and if this was something he wanted to go forward with after he measured out the property, then he would bring it back up to you. You're definitely right, that's what the conversation was.
And also, clarification was also for me to do the research on what, because the way the code reads is that it says residential properties, okay? Residential properties is not defined in your code, okay? But the word residential use is. So it's my interpretation that when it says residential properties, that anything residential, whether it is apartment, because that's used, if it's a townhouse, if anybody lives there, that is it's residential. And so Mr. Vasquez may disagree with that interpretation, think it's some sort of commercial because they're making money on it, but that's not the definition of a apartment complex. Isn't commercial because you're renting it. There's a commercial aspect, but it's a residential. And so that, Councilmember Randall, was another reason we postponed it, so I could look up and render an interpretation on that.
And are you aware, council, of the commercial car repair facility that's been maybe a small house between you and them or something like that? One of the rental houses on that corner for, I don't know, 30 years or something? I mean, it's like it's general commercial now. This is not new. No, that parking facility, please, Mr. Brown, not in the council meeting. The car repair place that's on that corner, right adjacent to you.
That's not the same.
Mr. Brown, please, don't I don't interrupt your meetings at planning and zoning, don't do this. So I just want to make sure you and council are aware of the area we're talking, and again, to Jolivet's place. And Jolivet's place is a lot bigger.
290?
No, Jolivet, Business 290, and Emerald, yeah, right on the corner. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think
Yes, sir.
you were, so we actually debated this conversation at least 40 minutes. We're on board with what he proposed, but we asked for some specific things to be done because of, for everybody to win. We had Mr. Kern said that he had to go back and look up what residence was. He just gave that. The owner needed to make up the decision if he wanted to move forward with moving from mixed use to general commercial, because if he moved to general commercial, wanting to do the auto repair, there were some requirements that our code says. So we don't want to replay this. I think we want this if it can fit. The question was, do we move forward and give him the GC without him knowing if it can fit? Which then, if we give him the GC tag, he can then go sell the property and they can put whatever that's GC, which means they don't have to come back through this process. We need to, so if he wants to do the GC and he wants to do the auto repair, we're saying that we don't have a problem with that if you meet the requirements that had already been set. And so I thought I was going to come back and he was going to say, hey, we have the 15 feet. It was tight, but we still want it. And here, so then, but I'm not saying that. So if you have, do you have that?
No, let me just kind of make a correction real quick, if you don't mind.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Thank you all for allowing me this opportunity again. And I just wanted, first of all, there's bits here and there that apparently I said, we said, and apparently there's incorrect information there. In your behalf, where Mr. Rowland, when we were here last time, Tim left me with a notion because he was sitting as where you're sitting at, Mr. Councilman, I don't know your name, I apologize again, but
Jones.
apparently he was looking at his computer because this is the first I've heard of this. I've been in this process a year and a half, okay? And first of all, in that process of a year and a half, 3 different applications I submitted that were incorrect.
And I just want to stop you right there, sir.
One second, please.
No.
I didn't interrupt.
Point of order. Point of order, sir. Point of
We have
order.
a point of order. Speak to it.
Thank you. You are required, sir, to know what is in our code of ordinances when you submit an application, okay? So they're online. There's a copy here. So if you don't understand what you have to comply with, that is your responsibility when you submit an application to the city. Legally, it is your responsibility to know everything in there, what you have to comply with. I just want to make sure that's clear.
And hold on just a second, because I want to pick up on what Councilman Rowland said.
Okay, sounds good.
And what you said, Counselor. When you mentioned the paving and all this other stuff, did it address council's previous concern in y'all's previous meeting?
What the council, what we had, that specific meeting was about the definition of residential property that I was going to render on, which I have rendered on.
Okay.
If he was supposed to go and stake out the 15 feet, I'm just gonna be quite honest, I don't remember because I know what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to render on what the residential property is.
So let's pick up on yours for mine and council's and Mr. Vasquez's benefit. Based on your research and our ordinances,
Yes.
would this fit right there? Just yes or no? I mean, would it fit?
I believe, I'd have to defer to Mr. Vasquez, because we spoke briefly right before the meeting. Is it ideal for him to do the 15-foot buffer? I don't believe so. Does it fit? I believe it. Is that correct? It does fit.
With the paving. But I also want to ask Councilman Rowland, in picking up on if the council decides to change it to GC General Commercial and Mr. Vasquez decides to sell it, that will be the same thing that was actually done with Dr. Shower next to the Chevron on Business 290. It was changed from ag to commercial or general commercial, and then Dr. Shower sold it, and now the people that bought it are looking to put commercial and retail. But to add to, they do have to come to us for a permit. So there's a check and balance, because if he sold it to Councilman Randall wants to build something else, he still has to come and get a council, he's got city approval to build whatever he wants to build there. You know, again, you just can't do it, then it has to be inspected by Bureau Veritas and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
And I guess, and
I
I'm sorry.
didn't mean to, I don't intend to interrupt you saying what you were saying, but you said this was the first I ever heard of this. So I was trying to get some clarification as to what this part of what you were saying you hadn't heard from before you got
And
too
I was
far.
getting to Councilman Jonathan. As we were here from the last meeting, and of course I was trying to present my experience in the time that I've been in this business about my autos. I had install shops, and Miss William tried to cut me down as far as you know, let's get to the nitty gritty. And I was trying to give a sense of who I am, because apparently in a year and a half I had a lot of people speaking in my behalf. And it was my given opportunity at that time, after a year and a half, I just wanted to explain to the public as well as to the city council as my experience. I don't come as a person unexperienced. And I was talking about as far as my install shop, I had a trap system. It cost me $35,000. So I know my responsibility. At the same time, you know, it seems like all these different guidelines, because apparently at that time Tim was sitting up there, and all of a sudden he came up with.
Let me help you. Let's go with Attorney Kerwin, Mr. Kerwin, not Tim, if you would.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Kerwin, I'm sorry, I apologize. Okay. But, you know, apparently he came up with a fact about a buffer. This is the first time I ever heard of it.
And that's incorrect, because he remembered. I mean, we had the conversation, and the reason why we walked out of here on good foot, because you were gonna go home, because he mentioned the buffer in the last meeting.
Oh, yes.
And that's,
I heard that, yes, you're correct. But that's the reason I'm saying, the last meeting I was here was the first time I ever heard of a buffer. I've never, in my year and a half, 3 applications that apparently Mr. Curran indicated that I should have did my research. I came to the city council and got that application. They're the one that submitted it to me. So I submitted the application that was given to me. I can't turn around and say, okay, this is the application I was supposed to have. If that was the case, if it's on the website, it's only Mr. Tim, as he has taken this position, now has brought it to my attention that apparently all this time I was filling out the wrong application. So that's when you brought it to my attention and we got that corrected and I submitted that new application.
Correct.
So it's been a process for me to be able to at least get to the point where I'm at now, just to try to present myself, of making sure that as far as the mechanic shops and apparently I think the chief of police indicated about a mechanic shop car lot just right down the street. And all the things that need to be done to it as far as the buffer, the pavement, and I even spoke to you this evening about that. Mr. Tim, I said, there's no pavement over there.
And
Making the adjustments as far as myself coming into play here, trying to bring my investments into this community. All I'm trying to do is do the diligence as far as a car lot. And the car lot that I'm talking about is giving the students an opportunity to be able to establish a vehicle that's going to be comfortable, because I'll be carrying the notes myself. But with that opportunity also, they'll be establishing what we call stability and credibility, that's credit. You know, I got, you know, for whatever the reason is that apparently that I'm not accepted in the same way, maybe it makes me a little frustrated with the fact that I come here. And all I'm trying to do is get my point, and it seems I'm still hitting these curves. I don't have an issue with that, and I'm not going to sell my property. I promise you that. 50 years from now, you will see my grandkids running this place.
Let me ask you a question, then Councilman Rosen next. The facility next to you, the car repair, we're on them now.
Yes, sir.
So they're gonna get some of them cars out of there. They bought and inherited, and I guess as you know, there's a nice paperwork process, even if it's 10, 20 years old and the owner is gone, before you can salvage it or sell it or auction it or throw it away. But they are going to adhere to the asphalt. What I want to ask you is, because we also have now an ordinance that wasn't enforced when you first started this process. We have an ordinance that you cannot be parking cars on the grass. So are you willing to adhere to asphalting, or I mean a simple
Absolutely.
asphalt? Because we don't want stuff going into our water table. And, okay, so you're okay with that? I just want to make sure. Councilman Rhodes, you were next.
Yeah, I just, again, we came in unclear about this issue when we talked about this, and we spent a long time. I thought we were very clear on, again, part of the issue, we were trying to figure out the process. We don't know that your application, so it seemed in our process, we let the application continue to go through, and we didn't verify the property to even see if it had the buffer. We didn't find out about the variance until we were in the meeting, and I think our Attorney Kerwin, once he looked at the ordinance, but it's not that, so you said that this is the first time you heard of it. In our ordinance, it said it. We just thought that people were saying, hey, if I want to open this, I look in our ordinance, it says to have a auto repair shop, you need to have this, this, and this. That's part of the process that we thought people did prior to even coming to us. And so that just came out at the last meeting. The part about the cement and not parking on the grass, again, our ordinance have changed and came up, but those are things that are in the ordinance. So when we left here thinking that, okay, you're going to make your decision if you had the property variance to go around for us to be able to move forward. So we're still saying that we don't know, or we may have, if we approve, again, just so we get clarity, if we approve him going from mixed use to GC, the property does not come back if he does not want to open a repair shop.
Correct.
But now, what we're saying is not the property, because you can't spot zone. So we're talking about changing to ZC, the area on Business 290.
It's just his
It's
lot.
just his lot.
Their lives.
But you can't spot zone.
That's
You
not,
can't
not,
pick
that's
one
not
lot in a
spot-
zone.
That's not necessarily, it's not spot zoning. If it's, for example, if there's a residential neighborhood, okay, all homes, and right in the middle, someone wants to put something commercial on lot 2, block 1, that's, everything around there is residential, okay? And you're gonna let one person put in a 7-Eleven, okay? That is spot zoning, because you are, nothing around there is comparable to that. When you look at Business 290, there are other businesses on there. They'll let you look at your comprehensive plan on what the city has determined, what they want that road to look like for the future, business. So you look at your comprehensive plan, so that it allows things to change without being spot zoning.
Yes, ma'am. Who's next? Go ahead.
Okay, so basically, anybody who's dealt with me long enough knows I'm very practical, right? So when I saw this item on the agenda, I thought we left at a place where everybody was had an understanding or on a good term. So I thought we left
You're talking with someone who
with the expectation where when you returned, there were going to be 2 questions asked, right? If your property could sustain the parameters that it takes to switch the ordinance, question number 1. And 2, were you willing to continue forward with your process knowing that you had to sustain the buffer and whatever else the ordinance? And I felt like we were supposed to come into that and it was going to be a very either no, it couldn't sustain it, or yes, it's sustaining it, yes, I want to keep going. But somehow I feel like we've gotten off track to what the initial conversation was. So I just asked you the 2 questions straight up. Can your property sustain the buffers that it requires, the 15-foot buffers that it requires, and whatever else the ordinance requires? And 2, knowing what the ordinance requires, are you still wanting to maintain that same business and that same property?
And I'm going to answer both of those questions with one answer. As we were here on the last meeting, I was left that Mr. Tim was going to check and see if that was actually, does it exist as far as the buffer. The only time that I've been able to speak to Attorney Tim is actually when I walked in this evening. He called me into that office with her, and we had a small discussion about it as far as the buffer itself. And that, to me, that's where I was left with it. Matter of fact, I even contacted Mr. Brown to find out where we stand at. Where were we standing at as far as the information that I needed to be able to find out if we can even move forward.
So you still don't know if you can put the buffers on? You haven't? Because
I didn't know, because I was still waiting.
You're waiting to get confirmation from
I was
attorney
waiting to
that you
get
can
confirmation
the
with, yeah, with Attorney Tim. Correct. Yes, sir.
Well, going forward, we're all trying to find a solution. So do you mind leaving this meeting, and I guess we table it to the next meeting to where you come back and you know whether or not like your business will be able to withstand the 15
Absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, I've done come this far, I'm not going backwards. I want to continue moving forward.
I got this drawing here, and I can tell him how to solve the problem if you'd like me to show it to you.
Please, yeah.
Do you mind?
No, I think it's a business decision that he needs to make on his own. And
Well,
like
he doesn't know
that
how
was
to-
what was supposed to have happened. And I'll extend an apology from us, personally, but that was something that was supposed to have taken place between the last time he was here and this one, to where he could look at what the ordinance says, look at his business plan and figure out if the 2 fit, and if he still wants to move forward with the business. And with the fact that that hadn't been done, then we're still in the same place that we left the last meeting. So he's gonna have to go and say, hey, I still wanna do this, and I'm ready to move forward. But, he has to decide if his business can sustain what the ordinance is requiring.
And I've heard, let me make a quick clarification, and then we'll let you make a motion, Councilman Jones. I've heard car repair. Your application permit says used car. So there's no car repair involved, so it's used car.
And from the last time, from the last meeting also, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Rowland, apparently because I had given him a package of what I have submitted in 4 different occasions. And Mr. Rowland only had 2 pieces of article, of pages. And I said, wow, I said, after all this time, apparently the information wouldn't get to point A to point C correctly. So I made sure that he made copies of it, and it has on there my descriptions as far as no mechanic work will be done. I have 2 facilities away from this location that the automobiles will be worked on before they ever hit my premises.
Gotcha. Okay, so is there any reason, Counselor or Councilman, that is there something else that Mr. Vasquez can't share with us? And I'm only thinking in terms of the length of this process back and forth through planning and zoning and what have you. Based on what you shared with us, Counselor, in terms of him being able to do this, pave and all that other stuff, what, I'll say, apprehensions in your mind
If he just needs
does
to,
he need to do?
he needs to make sure that if if the council does rezone it, that he can meet all the qualifications of the ordinance.
Well, actually, that's not quite true. Because if the council rezones it, and he can't, he's not getting a permit, so he won't be able to do it. We got an in-house check and balance.
Well, if
Us changing it don't mean he can do what he wants to do.
No, I understand. What I mean is, if physically his property can meet the 15-foot, then, and maybe it's a small area, but he still makes a business decision to go forward, then y'all can rezone it.
Okay,
If it
'cause I'm
did not
just-
physically, like for example, if there was an there's no way it could physically happen,
Right.
then you would absolutely never you would never approve a rezone.
Right.
Because it could not comply with the
Absolutely, and
ordinance.
definitely not a permit. So I'm just saying, from a council standpoint, do y'all want to go through this again? Because you could vote to change it, and if Mr. Vasquez just, for whatever reason, can't meet the qualifications, he just won't be able to do it. We won't be issuing a permit.
Councilman, I have some, I think Councilwoman.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Curran, the 15-foot buffer in the asphalt, that's a state requirement, right?
No, that's in your ordinance.
It's an ordinance, but it's also a state requirement.
I'm not aware of that being a state requirement. It's in your ordinance, and it's also in your ordinance about being 3 feet. Any sale has to be 3 feet from the property lines in the right of way. So that's in your ordinance.
State requirement in order to have a used car lot. There's some requirements by the state also. Yes, you will.
I haven't looked at the state.
Used car dealership.
Okay.
Well, he does have to be able to get a sales license, that's for sure. Yes, who's next? Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I think part of my apprehension about pre-approving goes back to if we move from mixed use to GC and say we give him we vote to approve to go from mixed use to GC, that's one process. The permit for his used car dealership is another process, and that can, so that you could deny him that, but guess what happened? He still has now a GC, so he can sell it to someone else, and as long as, you know, it was whatever commercial thing that we didn't have an ordinance for that could fit within that property, he would be able to do it. He doesn't have to comply with the permit as long as it fits our ordinances. And so so part of what I agree that we want him to move forward and we know where we stand is if we give him this moving from mixed use to GC, then, you know, there's no revocation to come back.
But actually, that's not, whoever builds there, I'll give you a good example. When after council 3-4 years ago changed Dr. Showers from ag to general commercial, the people building there still had to come and get a permit, and back then we didn't even know them. So we still have that wonderful check and balance. No one can build just anything. Now, I will grant you this, that has been a problem in the past, it's not a problem anymore. They are not building just anything they want in Prairie without a permit. And Chief, you're a witness, we've sent cease and desist and made people stop doing whatever in the city by our PD. So it really, we do have a check and balance. So if he changes it, it increases the property value, and he could sell it to someone, but they still have to come to us for permission to build something, and connect all water, all that stuff in the city. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we table item number 5 until Mr. Vasquez sees if his property can withstand the 15-foot water and all the state ordinance and state laws, and come back to us next week. And I ask you to do that.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded that we table item 5 until Mr. Vasquez comes back at the next meeting and bring the information about fulfilling the requirements. With that, you've heard the motion, ready for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Done. Item 6, discuss and take action to order general election for May 5th, 2018 for the purpose of electing mayor and 2 council members, positions 4 and 5. Positions are currently being held by A, David Allen, mayor, B, Wendy Williams, position 4, C, Paulette Barnett, position 5. What's council's pleasure?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
We've given the note, have we done the notice of election? And in the notice of election, do we have the location?
The notice of election was done in December.
Yeah,
Right.
but it doesn't require.
Okay.
It's on the door, I believe.
So in the notice of election, it has the location.
I have to see what the notice of election is required to. Whatever's on the front door is legally what's required.
Yeah.
I can go look at
The
it.
reason why I'm asking is that I know before we have to approve voting locations. Just like they do in the county when the election administrator brought to the county where they're gonna have polling locations, the dates and times. And I don't recall ever voting or coming before us on the location to say.
This is the ordinance that's before you. Has the times,
This is ordering the election. That's what,
right.
do you have a copy of that?
No. That's what
I'm asking, that's what I'm asking.
Okay, you should have a copy of the order of election.
The ordinance.
There's not any copy.
Yeah.
Then,
They have a copy?
Well,
Oh,
we
okay.
just,
Okay, we'll go. Wait, that's alcohol.
it should be attached to that.
So we have a discussion on.
There it is.
Going back to that package to look, so, right.
the reason why I asked that is, the reason why I asked that is because, we're supposed to do that tonight.
I don't want to miss what he's.
No, we need the copies.
Okay, I'll give a copy.
Okay, so that's fresh.
So I just was, I know we have listed on here for number 6, is this, so you're saying the locations, date and times that we're gonna get is what we're gonna vote on tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
It's in the ordinance.
Okay,
That's
so.
how we're calling elections.
So I guess what we should have had is it's a resolution or ordinance that we're.
Ordinance.
Order.
Okay, so
No,
the
it's
ordinances
order.
need to be listed on the agenda.
No,
If
we,
it's an ordinance,
no, it's not, or it's an order. You have to pass, it's an order.
So there's 2 things, I guess.
but we should be seeing the ordinance, what they're saying.
Yes, and then she's good.
I agree. Okay.
So we're getting ready to vote on the order or whatever tonight.
Yes.
The notice of election is what, I mean, we've all seen it, is what we had before, and it just says the locations, dates, and times that, in which the election is gonna happen. So we're gonna vote on that tonight in this pack, with this.
You don't have a choice to vote on it. Those election dates are set.
Yes, they're set by the state, but,
Yes.
so let me, clarity, maybe if you may wanna look at it. it's not to change the dates. We approve locations. So we'll have an early voting location for 2 days on campus.
Correct.
We would approve that. We would say we're gonna have early voting for 7 days at City Hall. We approve that. And so, when I'm not talking about the dates that are set by the state, I'm talking about that should have went out in your packet, and what the dates are up.
What went out with my packets was the Secretary of State's calendar that shows these exact dates.
So it's, I'm back to, and I agree with Councilman Rowland, this is an ordinance, not an order. So ordinances, we should, and
let me be clear. You have to pass an order, okay? So this word ordinance, we just need to change it to order. And you're fine. You have to.
So we order it.
Order the election, yes.
Okay.
If you, I can read from you the Secretary of State's website. The order must include. So you have it noticed as an order. This should say, if you want, you can say order on here, order of election, and that will send, you can say this, and we take out the word ordinance. But this has to be called before the 16th.
It has to be called today.
Right, I understand. So I'm trying to find out the date, the time. So like right here, on this schedule we had, there's some time changes where the time changes, like so on campus, it should be from 7 to 7. And
by law, I have to do 2 12-hour sets.
Yes,
and I'm doing those 2 12-hour sets here.
So I hear what you're saying by law. What we've been doing has been by law too. All I'm saying is that the locations and the location we set, this document that you bring before us, we then will come to as a body and agree or disagree on a lot of times. All I'm trying to look at is the document that I had that had some times on already. We're reducing the times for the other polling locations on one form, and all I'm trying to see is the form that he went to make copies, that the times be similar, that to be set like we've always had it. And so you're talking, state law is fine. You say you could do 2, 7 o'clock. We've always had 2, but they've usually been on campus. And so I'm just trying to be respectful.
Okay. And if I'm picking up on what Councilman's saying, is we want one of the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. to be at the other voting location, the Memorial Student Center on campus, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So, Council, is there any reason why we can't change that right now?
No, you can change it right now.
Okay, so let's change it now. And Council, what day would you prefer, Monday or Tuesday, the 25th or 26th? I'll go with either one. We just want to give the appropriate time in both locations. Which one?
Well, I said Tuesday.
Tuesday?
I have to provide enough people to man these locations, and we're already doing a late night on Tuesday here at this location. Could we do Monday night? Because
What they're saying is they're gonna switch.
Yeah, you're going to switch because they're not going to get 2 nights. So you're not going to get 2.
It's gonna be a normal night here on Tuesday.
And it's not the
Till
same day.
7.
It's gonna be a late night on
It's a
campus.
different day. The 25th and 26th, the other one's the 24th.
So we're going to
But we
move the
should be
24th to 8 to 5.
okay,
Okay,
So the
24th, 8 to
24th
5.
is going to be 8 to 5.
they're still gonna.
And Tuesday the 26th from 7 a.m.
Right,
to
we
7
have to
p.m.
have
Is that what I'm hearing,
just 2
Council?
here.
Yes.
Okay.
I want to read the other document. I don't know what
What other document are we talking about?
Would you tell Mr. Elijah to give you that document?
And something that I think we may just need to clarify, again, if we talk about elections. Two things. One, I want to make sure that we understand that the grave role that elections plays in our city, and Ms. Dickey, you've been entrusted to be our election administrator, and we want to support you 100%. Some of the questions, again, hopefully they're not coming off. They're just to make sure that we don't go to court and don't have any election issues like we've had prior to. And so hopefully it doesn't come off that way. One of the things in the packet, in the candidates packet, it says Monday, May 5th for place on the ballot. That's election day, which means that would be wrong. And so I just want to make sure that we understand the severity of not having everything 100% when we put the stuff out here. And so one of the questions is that do we consider having Waller County do our election while Ms. Dickey supervises and works through this process? And I didn't know the cost. We're still going to have a cost if we were going to do it, but the cost, we may want to revisit that to make sure that Ms. Dickey, she's running it, but Waller County is actually, we're using their machines with our people like we normally do. So the only thing is, instead of they'll be using their machines, and it'll be a set cost, so we don't have to worry about, we would supply the people like we normally do. One of the reasons, as you know, we brought it in-house because it was, Waller County it was cheaper to get our own machines, but then that's something else that Ms. Dickey has to learn, the HART machine, outside of even the election process. And so these suggestions are just put out as suggestions as far as, what are we going to do to move forward? Because this is the document.
Yes, Councilman.
Mr. Mayor, my question goes to now which one of the 7 a.m.s to 7 p.m.s are we going to change? I mean, I would suggest that we change the one on the 24th to 8 to 5.
I thought council said Tuesday, April 26th. You mean the one on campus, or?
No, I'm saying, so like right now, like which one are we going to change from 8 to 5?
It was the Tuesday one.
Yeah, they said Tuesday.
We're going to change that back to 8 to 5.
Yeah, April 24th. Okay, anything else on the dates? We're straight. Tuesday, April 24th from 8 to 5 is the first change on the dates. And the second one is Tuesday, April 26th, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Memorial Student Center on campus. Everyone have that?
Mayor, one moment, please. I want to make sure that the two, the two 12-hour days.
They have to be here.
The two 12-hour days.
Have to be, at least two. If you want to do another one on campus, if you want to do a 12-hour day on campus, that's fine. But we still have to have two 12-hour days here legally at our primary voting location.
Has to have 2-7 at the primary.
Correct, 7 to 7s. I have to have two.
So can we add one on campus as well?
Yeah.
Or, I'm just asking, based on what you just went to the training thing.
If you want to do more, you can do more.
Okay, so we need to leave these 2 7s in
Correct.
place
You
and
can't-
decide if we want a third
You
one.
cannot do that at a preliminary, or at a secondary voting location. You can do it, you can add the hours, that's fine, but it can't count as your primary voting location.
Now, because as I recall, I remember on campus, they didn't open till 8 o'clock.
That's correct. It's at 8 to 5.
Okay, so the time and dates are okay as they are. Both 8
So
to
what
5 on
document are you
campus?
looking at, Council Rowland?
The 7 to, so this one had the Monday and Tuesday from 7 to 7 here at the primary early voting location.
It just had the two late days together.
Right.
And I changed it where it was Tuesdays. So Tuesdays would be the 7 o'clock nights.
Okay.
That's which gives our voters on the last day 2 more hours. You see what I've done?
Yes.
Okay.
So are we
So
saying?
we're saying, so so you're saying we'll leave, we're only scheduled, we only have enough resources from 8 to 5 on campus in MSC without extending the hours?
Right, if you want to extend the hours, I will make sure we have enough election officials
Well, but
But the
let
two
me,
have
let
to
fit
me,
be here.
into that.
yeah, let me make sure I'm clear. Both the ones on campus last year were 8 to 5?
8 to 5. yes.
Okay, so we're gonna go with what, okay.
So that's exactly how it's written here in the
Okay, so-
ordinance,
so
is that
change it
correct?
back.
Correct.
Okay. Order, I'm sorry, order.
Okay, so go with the original type.
Okay, so change the 24th back to 7,
Yes, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the
City Hall.
City Hall, and both 8 to 5s at the MSC.
So the only thing that will, I think, change is it will be called order of election at the top, and it will, the first sentence will say, on the caption, it will take out the word "an ordinance of," and it will just say
Okay.
the city, start with the city of Prairie View, and then it will say "be it ordered" rather than "ordained." Those will be the, to make it an order rather than ordinance.
Okay, council see anything else as we put it to a vote? Okay, the chair will entertain a motion on ordinance number 180212.
Order.
On order?
Just an order.
Change that to, Councilman Randall.
I move that we approve the order for general election for May 5th, 2018 for the purpose of electing mayor and 2 city council members, positions 4 and 5, positions currently held by David Allen, Mayor, Wendy Williams, position 4, Paulette Barnett, position 5.
Second.
Okay, you've heard the motion about order number 180212. You've heard the motion, ready for the questions?
Question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Let's take a roll vote. I just want to make sure we've had a lot of discussion. Councilman Rowland?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, let the record show it was unanimous. Item number 7, consider and take action to adopt an ordinance providing rules and regulations for alcohol. Attorney Kerwin.
This was brought back, I don't think you had a copy of the ordinance last time, you should all have a copy this time, correct? Does everyone have a copy of the ordinance?
No,
Okay. So this sets out permit fees that y'all did not have before. It sets out distancing requirements that you did not have before. You had 4 regulations on alcohol. That's it. This is more comprehensive, and so it's whatever your pleasure is on the ordinance. Yes, sir?
Mr. Mayor?
Council Rowland.
I move that we move this to, we're taking this to a workshop until we get all the information we need to make the best decision.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved that we table item number 7, consider and take action to adopt an ordinance, provide rules and regulations for alcohol until additional information is received by council. You've heard the motion, ready for the question?
Unregulated, what we're supposed to be, so just go into our, to make a decision, we need the ordinance that Mr. Attorney Curran has sent.
Y'all should have a copy of that. Is
It was
what-
in last meeting.
Everyone had a copy except for Mr. Randall, I believe,
And then he found
and
it
you
in
found
his
it
junk.
in your junk folder.
Right, I'm yes, but again, I also provided Attorney Curran with 9 questions, and he responded to my questions, and so I want to, this is not about, are we just updating our ordinance, or is there something that is happening that's required us to need to look at this?
Your ordinance does not allow you to collect permit fees at this point. Your ordinance does not have any distancing requirements. Distancing requirements are not required by state law. If you want to have distancing requirements to schools, churches, and those sorts of things, this ordinance does that.
You're saying distance?
Distancing requirement. So you can
Where
only
you can
put,
sell alcohol,
where you can sell
certain
alcohol.
distances to different things.
It is not automatic by state law. In fact, you have to adopt an ordinance to establish any distancing requirements. You don't have any. And so if you don't want to have any, that's okay.
And we don't have any fees incurred
don't have any-
in that right now.
Right, if you don't want to, that's fine too. I mean, I'm just putting together,
So I guess, is the motion to be on the next, I made the motion to be tabled until we have further information.
I think you said a workshop.
Okay.
Can we set a date for the workshop so we can, while we're all here?
I'm going to,
We'll table over to the next meeting.
table over to the next meeting until we get the information, and we'll go from there.
Okay, who did the second? Accept that friendly amendment? Okay. Any other unreadiness? So Attorney Kerwin, if you would resend the information to all of us, and that way we'll have it. Anything else that we need between now and the next meeting on this particular issue? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Anything else before the council this evening?
Move to adjourn.
So moved. We're done.
Be John Phillips and doesn't matter.